The mate bond snapped like a bone breaking, and Arya knew, right there in front of 500 witnesses, that she'd been played for a fool. You actually thought I wanted you? Damien's voice carried across the ceremony grounds, and the spring breeze felt suddenly cold against Arya's skin. She stood in the center of the mating circle, wearing the white dress she'd saved 3 months' wages to buy. Around them, the Silvermoon pack had gathered beneath strings of lights and blooming dogwood trees, celebrating the season when wolves found their mates. She'd been so sure. The stolen kisses behind the training grounds. His hand finding hers in the darkness. The way he'd whispered her name like a prayer. All lies. Look at her, Damien continued, circling Arya like she was prey. His handsome face twisted into something ugly. Worthless Omega blood. No family. No status. Did you really believe a beta would choose someone like you? Arya's wolf whimpered inside her chest. The bond they'd started to form over the past months, the one she'd felt growing stronger each time he touched her, was unraveling. It hurt worse than anything physical ever could. Damien, please, her voice cracked. Please what? He laughed, and several pack members joined in. You were useful, Arya. I'll give you that. Celine needed to see that other women wanted me. Needed a little push to accept my proposal. He turned, extending his hand toward the crowd. Come here, baby. Celine emerged from the gathered wolves, beautiful and cruel in a red dress that probably cost more than Arya made in a year. The Alpha's daughter moved like she owned the world, because in the Silvermoon pack, she basically did. You used me. Arya's words came out flat. Numb. I used you, Damien agreed cheerfully, pulling Celine against his side. And you made it so easy. Desperate little Omega, so grateful for attention. He paused, then smiled. Want to know the best part? Every time you thought we were having a moment, I was thinking about her. Celine laughed, high and bright. He'd come straight from you to me. We'd laugh about the things you said. How you looked at him like he'd hung the moon. She wrinkled her nose. It was pathetic. The crowd's laughter grew louder. Arya recognized voices, pack members she'd grown up with, people she'd considered friends. Her foster mother stood near the back, arms crossed, face carefully blank. Not defending her. No one was defending her. Should we tell her the rest? Celine asked, running her fingers down Damien's chest. Why not? Damien's eyes glittered with malice. This was Celine's idea from the start. She wanted to see if I'd really choose her over anyone, even someone who worshipped the ground I walked on. You were the test, Arya. And you failed by actually believing I could love something like you. Something inside Arya broke, not the bond this time, but something deeper. Essential. The part of her that had survived losing her parents at 10, that had endured 12 years as the pack's lowest member, that had believed maybe, just maybe, she deserved happiness. Her wolf howled. The sound came out of Arya's throat, raw and agonized, echoing across the ceremony grounds. Around the circle, wolves shifted uncomfortably. Even in a pack that treated Omegas like dirt, that sound meant something. It was the cry of a mate bond being severed, and it was sacred. Or it should have been. Oh, stop being dramatic, Damien said. We were never true mates. You just wanted us to be. The world tilted. Arya's knees hit the ground hard, white dress pooling around her in the dirt. The pain was physical now, her wolf clawing inside her chest, confused and betrayed. Wolves weren't meant to break forming bonds. It went against nature. Against everything they were. Look how weak she is, someone called from the crowd. Can't even stay on her feet. Typical Omega. Her parents would be ashamed. That last comment came from her foster father. Arya saw him through the blur of tears, standing beside his mate, both of them wearing expressions of disgust. They'd taken her in when her parents died, but only because the Alpha ordered them to. They'd made sure she knew every day that she was a burden. Arya pressed her forehead to the ground, unable to hold herself up anymore. The severed bond felt like acid in her veins. Her wolf was whining now, a constant keen of pain that made her want to claw out of her own skin. "We should go," Celine said, sounding bored. "This is depressing. Besides, we have our own ceremony to complete." She looked down at Arya with something like pity, which somehow made it worse. "You'll get over it eventually. Find some other Omega to settle with. That's how it works for your kind." Arya heard them walk away, heard the pack begin to disperse, murmuring about the entertainment. A few wolves stepped over her like she was trash on the ground. No one helped her up. No one even paused. She lay there as the ceremony lights swayed overhead and the scent of dogwood turned sickly sweet. Her wolf had gone quiet now, not peaceful, but shocked into silence. Broken. "Get up," Arya told herself. "Get up and leave. Go somewhere they'll never find you." But her body wouldn't obey. The pain was too much. The humiliation was too much. She'd let herself believe in something beautiful, and they destroyed her for it. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. The ceremony grounds emptied. Soon it was just Arya and the night and the awful silence of her shattered wolf. She should move. Should leave before someone came back to mock her again. Should. The air changed. It was subtle at first, a shift in temperature, a sudden stillness. The insects that had been chirping went quiet. The wind died. Even the lights stopped swaying. Arya lifted her head from the dirt, confusion cutting through the pain. Then she felt it. Power, rolling across the ceremony grounds like a physical wave. It pressed against her skin, heavy and wild and ancient. Her wolf stirred for the first time since the bond broke, not in pain but in recognition. "Alpha," her wolf whispered. Not just any alpha. A massive black wolf emerged from the tree line. He was huge, easily twice the size of any wolf in the Silvermoon pack, with fur so dark it seemed to absorb the light around him. But it was his eyes that made Arya's breath catch. Silver. Pure, bright silver, like moonlight made solid. The wolf moved with liquid grace, paws silent on the ground despite his size. He didn't approach the ceremony grounds so much as claim them, every movement radiating dominance. "Oh gods," someone whispered from near the pack house. It can't be. "The Alpha King," another voice breathed. "He's here." The whispers spread like wildfire. Wolves who'd been heading inside stopped dead. Alpha Thomas emerged from the pack house at a run, followed by his council members, all of them wearing expressions of shock and terror. No one had seen the Alpha King in 3 years. Cale Thorne ruled the Northern Territories from his palace, and he didn't bother with pack politics. Didn't attend ceremonies. Didn't visit small packs like Silvermoon. Until now. The black wolf's silver eyes swept across the ceremony grounds, taking in the scattered decorations and the gaping pack members. Then his gaze locked on Arya. She was still on the ground, dress filthy, tears drying on her cheeks. She must look pathetic. Broken. Exactly what Damien had called her. But the Alpha King didn't look away. He moved toward her with deliberate purpose, and the crowd parted like he was Moses and they were the Red Sea. No one dared get in his path. Alpha Thomas started to step forward, probably to greet him, to offer proper respects, but one look from those silver eyes stopped him cold. The black wolf came to a halt 3 feet from Arya. Up close, he was even more massive. His head was level with hers even though she was kneeling. Power radiated off him in waves that made her skin prickle and her broken wolf sit up and take notice. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Arya knew she should look away. You didn't meet an alpha's eyes, especially not the Alpha King's eyes. But something kept her gaze locked with his. The wolf shifted. The transformation was seamless, bones and fur rearranging in the space between heartbeats. When it was done, a man knelt where the wolf had been. He was beautiful. Sharp features that looked carved from stone, dark hair that fell to his shoulders, a body built for violence. Scars crossed his chest and arms, a warrior's body. But it was his eyes that held her. Those same silver eyes, boring into hers with an intensity that should have terrified her. He was naked, as all wolves were after shifting, but someone quickly brought him pants. He pulled them on without looking away from Arya. "What's your name?" His voice was deep, rough, like gravel and honey mixed together. "Hey Arya." She hated how small she sounded. "Arya Thorne." Something flickered in his eyes at her last name. Thorne. It was my mother's maiden name. Arya stopped. He didn't care about her dead parents. "I'm no one, Your Majesty." "You don't need to. Stand up." It wasn't a request. Arya's wolf practically threw her to her feet, responding to the alpha command in his voice. She swayed, still weak from the broken bond, but managed to stay upright. The alpha king, Kale, moved closer. He was tall enough that Arya had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Close enough that she could feel the heat of his skin, smell pine and snow and something wild. "Who hurt you?" he asked quietly. It doesn't matter." "It matters." His eyes flashed silver. "Tell me." The words spilled out before Arya could stop them, compelled by the weight of his command and her wolf's desperate need to obey this male. "Beta Damien. We were courting. I thought we were forming a bond. But it was a lie. He was using me to make his real chosen mate jealous. He rejected me in front of everyone." Kale's jaw tightened. "Where is he now?" "Please, don't," Arya started, but Kale was already turning, scanning the crowd. Damien stood near the pack house, Selene still glued to his side, both of them watching with wide eyes. When Kale's gaze landed on them, Selene actually flinched. "You," Kale said, his voice carrying across the silent grounds. "Come here." Damien hesitated. For a second, Arya thought he might actually refuse, which would have been suicide. But self-preservation won out. He walked toward them, moving slowly, Selene trailing behind. "Your Majesty," Damien said, dropping into a bow. "We're honored by your presence. I'm Beta Damien, and this is..." Silence. Kale didn't raise his voice, but Damien's mouth snapped shut. "You rejected this woman?" Damien's eyes darted to Arya, calculating. "She's just an Omega, Your Majesty." "Surely you don't." The crack of Kale's fist hitting Damien's jaw echoed like a gunshot. Damien went down hard, blood spraying from his mouth. Selene screamed. The pack gasped. Alpha Thomas stepped forward, probably to protest the violence against his beta, but Kale shot him a look that made the man freeze mid-step. "When I ask a question," Kale said, standing over Damien's prone form, "you answer it. You don't make excuses. You don't justify." He crouched down, grabbing Damien by the throat and lifting him partially off the ground. "Now. Did you reject her after courting her? After letting her believe you were forming a mate bond?" "Yes," Damien choked out. "Yes, but..." Kale's grip tightened. "No buts. You humiliated her in front of your pack. Broke a forming bond for sport." His eyes were glowing now, more silver than ever. "That's not just cruel. It's forbidden. The moon goddess doesn't look kindly on those who mock the sacred bonds." "Please," Damien gasped, clawing at Kale's hand. "I'm sorry. You'll do nothing." Kale released him, letting Damien collapse to the ground, coughing and gasping. "If I ever hear you've spoken to her again, looked at her again, even thought about her again, I'll come back and finish what I started. Understood?" Damien nodded frantically, unable to speak. Kale stood and turned back to Arya. When their eyes met, something shifted in the air between them. It felt like static electricity, like the moment before lightning struck. Arya's wolf surged forward, suddenly desperate and yearning, the broken bond forgotten in the face of this new, overwhelming presence. "No," Arya whispered, but she didn't know what she was denying. Kale moved toward her slowly, giving her time to back away. She couldn't. Her feet were rooted to the ground as he came close enough to touch. I came here tonight because I felt something, he said quietly, meant only for her ears. A pull. I've been searching for 3 years, and it led me here. His hand came up, fingers barely brushing her cheek. To you. I don't understand, Arya breathed. You will. His thumb traced her jawline, and everywhere he touched felt electric. You're mine, Arya Thorne. You were always meant to be mine. But I'm perfect, he interrupted. You're perfect. Then, before Arya could process what was happening, before she could think or breathe or protest, Kale lowered his head and pressed his lips to her neck. The mate mark. She felt his canines extend, felt them pierce her skin with a sharp, sweet pain. Power flooded through her, his power, wild and ancient and vast. The broken bond with Damien dissolved like it had never existed. In its place, something new formed. Something stronger. A golden thread connecting her soul to Kale's, unbreakable and eternal. Her wolf howled again, but this time in joy. In completion. In recognition of the one they'd been waiting for without even knowing it. Kale released her neck, his tongue licking over the mark to seal it. When he pulled back, his eyes were molten silver. Mine, he said simply. The crowd erupted. Gasps and whispers and shocked exclamations. Alpha Thomas looked like he might pass out. Celine had gone pale as death. And Damien was staring at them with an expression of pure horror, finally realizing what he'd lost. But Arya barely noticed any of it. She was too focused on the man in front of her, the mate bond singing through her veins, the feeling of belonging somewhere for the first time in 12 years. I don't even know you, she whispered. Kale smiled, and it transformed his harsh features into something almost gentle. You will. We have time. He turned, addressing the crowd. I'm taking my mate to the Northern Palace. If anyone has objections, speak now. No one spoke. No one dared. Good. Kale scooped Arya into his arms like she weighed nothing. She made a small sound of surprise, grabbing onto his shoulders. We leave immediately. As they walked toward the tree line, Arya looked back at the ceremony grounds. At the pack that had rejected her, mocked her, treated her like nothing. They were all staring now with wide eyes and jealous faces, finally understanding what they'd lost. But as Kale carried her into the darkness, followed by wolves that must have been his guards, Arya overheard his beta speaking urgently. Are you certain she's the one? If her blood doesn't work, we have less than 3 months. Kale's arms tightened around her. When he answered, his voice was too low for her to hear clearly, but she caught fragments. She'll work. She has to. A chill ran down Arya's spine that had nothing to do with the night air. What had she just agreed to? What did they need her blood for? And why did Kale sound so desperate beneath all that power and control? The mate bond hummed contentedly in her chest, already half in love with this stranger who'd claimed her. But as the Silvermoon Pack territory disappeared behind them, Arya couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just traded one nightmare for another. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. They traveled through the night in wolf form, all except Arya, who rode on Kale's massive back, clinging to his fur as the forest blurred past them. She should have been terrified. Hours ago, she'd been nobody. The pack's Omega. Damien's joke. Now she was marked by the most powerful wolf in the Northern Territories, being carried toward a palace she'd only heard about in stories, bonded to a male she didn't know. But the mate bonds sang in her blood, warm and insistent, telling her this was right. This was home. Her wolf had settled for the first time since her parents died, content in a way Arya had forgotten was possible. Still, questions circled in her mind like hungry ravens. If her blood doesn't work, we have less than 3 months. What did that mean? Work for what? And why had Kale sounded so desperate when he said she had to? The bond let her feel his emotions, not clearly, not like reading his mind, but in waves. Right now, she felt determination. Purpose. And underneath it all, something that tasted like fear. Alpha kings weren't supposed to be afraid of anything. Dawn was breaking when they finally stopped. Arya slid off Kale's back on shaky legs, her inner thighs aching from the hours of riding. Around them, pine trees stretched toward a sky painted pink and gold. The air was colder here, crisp with the promise of snow even though it was spring. Kale shifted back to human form, and once again Arya was struck by how beautiful he was. Dangerous and wild, like a storm-given flesh. One of his guards, a younger wolf with nervous eyes, brought him clothes. Black pants, a shirt he didn't bother buttoning. "We'll rest here briefly," Kale said, his voice carrying to the 6 wolves who'd accompanied them. "Marcus, post sentries. I don't trust Thomas not to do something stupid." A man stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. This had to be Marcus, the beta she'd overheard. He bowed slightly to Kale, then surprised Arya by bowing to her as well. "Luna," he said respectfully. "Welcome to the Northern Territories." Luna. The title felt wrong in her mouth, too big for someone like her. But before she could protest, Kale was there, his hand finding the small of her back in a gesture that felt both possessive and protective. "She needs food," Kale told Marcus. "And water." "We pushed hard." "Of course." Marcus gestured to one of the guards, who immediately began unpacking supplies from a bag Arya hadn't noticed. "Your Majesty, if I might have a word." "Later." Kale's tone was final. He guided Arya toward a fallen log, waiting until she sat before settling beside her. Close enough that their thighs touched. "You held on well. Most wolves would have fallen off at the pace we kept." "I was motivated not to crack my skull open," Arya said, then froze. Was she allowed to joke with an alpha king? To speak to him so casually? But Kale laughed, a real laugh that softened his harsh features. "Fair enough." He accepted a canteen from one of the guards and handed it to her. "Drink. You're dehydrated." The water was cold and perfect. Arya drank deeply, not realizing how thirsty she'd been until the liquid hit her throat. When she lowered the canteen, she found Kale watching her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "You have questions," he said. "Not a question, a statement." "Several hundred," Arya admitted. "But I don't know if I'm allowed to ask them." "You're my mate. You're allowed to ask me anything." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. The touch sent sparks up her arm, the bond humming with approval. "Though I may not be able to answer everything yet." "Why not?" "Because some answers are dangerous. And until I know you're safe, I won't risk putting you in more danger than you're already in." Arya's stomach tightened. What kind of danger? Kale was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Around them, his guards had spread out, giving them the illusion of privacy while still maintaining a protective perimeter. "The Northern Territories are dying," he said finally. "Slowly. So slowly that most don't notice yet. But the land is sick, and it's spreading. Crops fail. Prey animals disappear. Pack members fall ill with fevers that don't break." His jaw tightened. "My pack is strong, but we can't fight something we can't see or understand." "How long has this been happening?" 3 years. Since my father died and I took the throne." He looked at her then, silver eyes shadowed with something that might have been guilt. "Some say it's my fault. That I'm not worthy of the crown. That the land itself rejects me." Arya's wolf growled at that, protective and furious that anyone would question their mate. The intensity of the feeling surprised her. "That's ridiculous. You didn't cause." "Didn't I?" Kale's smile was bitter. "I've searched everywhere for answers. Consulted healers, historians, even a witch who tried to poison me for her trouble. Nothing worked." His hand tightened on hers. Until I heard about a bloodline. An old story, almost a myth. About wolves descended from the moon goddess herself, marked by silver in their blood. Healers. Saviors. Understanding clicked into place with a cold clarity that made Arya's breath catch. You think I'm one of them? I know you are. Cale reached up, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her neck, tracing the fresh mark he'd left. I felt it the moment I scented you. Your blood calls to something ancient in this land. You're the answer I've been searching for. But what if I'm not? The words came out small, frightened. What if you're wrong? What if my blood is just blood? Then we have less than 3 months before the sickness reaches the heart of my territory and everyone I'm sworn to protect dies. The blunt honesty of it stole her breath. Arya stared at him, this powerful male who'd swept in and claimed her, and saw the truth in his eyes. He was terrified. Desperate. Carrying the weight of an entire kingdom on his shoulders while his land died beneath his feet. You should have told me, she whispered. Before you marked me. I should have had a choice. Would you have come willingly if I'd explained? Cale asked. If I'd told you I needed you to save my people, that your blood might be the only thing standing between them and death? Would you have believed me, or would you have thought I was insane? Arya wanted to say she would have helped anyway. That she would have been brave and selfless and everything Aluna should be. But she wasn't sure that was true. A few hours ago, she'd been broken on the ground, humiliated and hurting. If Cale had approached her with a story about ancient bloodlines and dying lands, she probably would have thought he was mocking her too. The bond is real, Cale said, as if reading her thoughts. I didn't lie about that. You are my fated mate, I felt it the moment I saw you. The pull between us, it's not something that can be faked. His voice dropped, rough with emotion. I need you for my kingdom, yes. But I want you for myself. Those are two separate truths, Arya. I won't pretend otherwise. The honesty was almost worse than a lie would have been. At least with a lie, she could be angry. Could feel righteously betrayed. But this raw vulnerability from a male who probably never showed weakness, left her with nowhere to direct her fear. I don't know how to save anyone, she said. I'm just an Omega. I can't even. You're not just anything. Cale's hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Omega is a rank assigned by small-minded wolves who don't understand what real power looks like. Your parents, did they tell you anything about your bloodline? About where you came from? They died when I was 10. A rogue attack. The memory still ached, even after 12 years. My mother's name was Elena Thorne. She was beautiful and kind and she used to sing to me. My father was from a smaller pack, nobody important. They never mentioned anything about silver blood or moon goddesses. Elena Thorne, Cale repeated, something flickering in his expression. Your mother, did she have any unusual abilities? Healing, perhaps? Or dreams that came true? Arya started to say no, then stopped. There had been something. Small things she'd forgotten over the years. She always knew when I was going to get sick, before I showed symptoms. And when I cut myself once, badly, she held her hand over the wound and sang this strange song. By morning, it was healed completely. No scar. She looked at Cale. I thought it was just a mother's magic. The kind all mothers have. It was more than that. Cale stood, pulling her up with him. Your mother was silver blood, which means you are too. It's inherited through the maternal line, passed from mother to daughter for generations. You have her power, Arya. You just don't know how to access it yet. And if I can't? If I try and fail? Then I'll find another way. But his voice lacked conviction, and through the bond, she felt his doubt. He didn't believe there was another way. She was his last hope. Marcus approached then, his expression apologetic. Your Majesty, we need to move. I've had reports of movement in the woods. Could be rogues, could be scouts from Silvermoon. Either way, we shouldn't stay exposed. Kale nodded. Mount up. We'll reach the palace by midday. He turned to Arya. Can you ride a few more hours? She wanted to say no. Wanted to demand they stop, that he explain everything, that she have time to process the impossible situation she'd landed in. But his pack was dying. People were suffering. And whether she liked it or not, she might be their only chance. Yes, she said. I can ride. Something like respect flickered in Kale's eyes. He shifted back to wolf form, waiting while she climbed onto his back. As they took off through the trees, Arya heard Marcus speaking to another guard. Still don't understand how he's certain. The prophecy was vague at best. If she's not the right bloodline. She is. That was a female voice, sharp and assured. I can smell it on her. Moon blessed and marked. The question isn't whether she's silver blood. It's whether she'll survive what comes next. Arya's hands tightened in Kale's fur. Through the bond, she felt him tense, felt his determination harden into something almost desperate. He knew she'd overheard. Knew she'd have more questions now. But he didn't stop. Didn't slow. Just kept running toward his palace and whatever waited there. The northern territory unfolded around them as they traveled, vast forests giving way to rocky hills, then sweeping valleys dotted with small villages. Arya saw wolves in the distance, going about their daily lives. They looked healthy enough, but there was something off about the land itself. The grass wasn't quite the right shade of green. The streams ran slower than they should. Even the air tasted faintly wrong, like fruit just beginning to rot. By the time the palace came into view, Arya understood the scope of what Kale was facing. This wasn't just a sick pack, it was a dying kingdom. And somehow, impossibly, she was supposed to heal it. The palace rose from the landscape like something out of a fairy tale, all silver stone and soaring towers, surrounded by walls that had probably stood for centuries. As they approached, guards lined up along the battlements, and Arya heard horns blowing in greeting. Kale shifted back to human form at the gates, helping her down with gentle hands. Someone brought him clothes, formal this time, befitting a king. He dressed quickly, then offered Arya his arm. Welcome home, Luna, he said softly. Home. The word should have felt strange, but the bond warmed in her chest, whispering that yes, this was where she belonged. Even if everything else was uncertain, even if she was terrified and confused and completely out of her depth, this was home because he was here. They walked through gates that swung open at Kale's approach. The courtyard beyond was filled with wolves, nobles and servants, guards and advisors, all of them dropping into bows as their king passed. Arya felt the weight of their stares, measuring and judging. A woman descended the palace steps, older, elegant, with silver threading through her dark hair and the same piercing silver eyes as Kale. She wore power like a second skin, but her expression softened when she saw them. Mother, Kale said, and Arya's eyes widened. This was the Queen Mother. Luna Evelyn, who'd ruled beside the former Alpha King. This is Arya. My mate. Evelyn's gaze swept over Arya, and for a moment, something complicated flickered in those silver eyes. Recognition? Sadness? But then she smiled, warm and genuine, and stepped forward to embrace Arya like she was precious. Welcome, child, she murmured against Arya's hair. You're braver than you know. And you're going to need every ounce of that courage for what's ahead. Before Arya could ask what she meant, Evelyn pulled back, addressing the gathered crowd. The Alpha King has found his mate. Let the palace celebrate. Cheers erupted. Wolves shifted and howled their approval. But Arya saw the undercurrent of desperation in their joy, the way they looked at her like she might be their salvation. The pressure of it was suffocating. Kale's hand found hers, anchoring her. Through the bond, she felt his pride and his fear mixed together. He believed in her. Needed her. Had staked everything on the hope that she was what he'd been searching for. Arya just prayed she wouldn't let him down. As the celebration began, as wolves pressed forward to meet their new Luna, Arya caught sight of Marcus speaking urgently to Evelyn. The Queen Mother's expression darkened, and her eyes found Arya across the courtyard. Then Marcus said something that made Evelyn's face go pale. Something that made Cale's hand tighten almost painfully on Arya's. Later, when the formal introductions were done and Arya was finally alone in quarters more luxurious than anywhere she'd ever lived, a servant brought her a message. The Queen Mother requests your presence in the East Tower. Come alone. Tell no one. Arya stared at the note, her heart pounding. Through the bond, she could feel Cale somewhere in the palace, busy with matters of state. He wouldn't know if she slipped away. And the Queen Mother had been kind, hadn't she? But as Arya made her way through empty corridors toward the East Tower, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something she didn't understand. Something that might change everything. The tower door stood open. Arya climbed the spiral stairs, each step echoing in the silence. At the top, she found a circular room lined with ancient books and artifacts. And in the center, Evelyn stood before a tapestry that depicted the moon goddess herself, silver and glowing. Close the door, Evelyn said without turning around. Arya obeyed, her mouth dry. You're wondering why I asked you here? Evelyn finally turned, and her expression was grave. I needed to see you alone. To confirm what I suspected the moment you arrived. I don't understand. Your mother, Evelyn said quietly. Elena Thorne. She was my sister. The world tilted. What? Which makes you my niece? My blood. Evelyn moved closer, taking Arya's hands in hers. And it means the prophecy is more dangerous than even Cale realizes. Because the ritual that will save his kingdom, it doesn't just require silver blood, child. It requires sacrifice. The kind you don't walk away from. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. Arya's hands were shaking. You're my aunt? I was your mother's older sister. Evelyn's grip tightened, steady and warm. We were separated when we were young. Our parents believed splitting the silver bloodline would keep us safer. 2 targets are harder to eliminate than 1. Elena went south, I came north. We were forbidden from contacting each other. But she never told me. Never mentioned. She was protecting you. The less you knew about what you were, the safer you'd be. Evelyn's silver eyes, so like Cale's, so like Arya's own mother's, filled with old grief. When I heard about the rogue attack that killed her and your father, I tried to find you. But by then you'd been taken in by your foster family, hidden among the Silvermoon pack. I thought perhaps it was for the best. That you'd live a normal life. There's nothing normal about being an Omega in a pack that hates you. No. Evelyn's voice softened. I suppose there isn't. And now fate has brought you here anyway, to the one place I hoped you'd never have to come. Arya pulled her hands free, stepping back. The tower room suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. You said something about a sacrifice. What did you mean? Evelyn turned back to the tapestry of the moon goddess. In the fading light through the tower windows, the silver thread seemed to glow. 300 years ago, Cale's ancestor, Alpha King Magnus, made a deal with a powerful witch. She promised him victory in a territorial war, promised his pack would become the strongest in all the northern lands. And she delivered. But the price? Evelyn's voice dropped. The price was a betrayal. Magnus was supposed to marry the witch's daughter, a woman with silver blood. Instead, he rejected her publicly, chose a politically advantageous match. The witch cursed his entire bloodline in revenge. What kind of curse? The land itself turns against them. Slowly, over generations, the Northern Territory dies. Each Alpha King watches his kingdom decay a little more, his people suffer a little longer. And there's only one way to break it. Evelyn faced Arya again. A willing sacrifice from the silver bloodline. The descendant of the woman who was rejected must choose to bind her life force to the land, to become the living vessel of healing. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Arya's wolf whimpered, suddenly understanding why Chaol had been so desperate to find her. Why he'd marked her immediately, before she could refuse. He knows, Arya said flatly. Chaol knows about this. He knows there's a ritual involving silver blood. But I haven't told him everything, not the full cost. Evelyn's expression was anguished. I was trying to find another way. I've spent 3 years searching for an alternative. But time is running out, and when Chaol sensed you in the Silvermoon territory, he couldn't wait any longer. So he marked me. Bound me to him so I couldn't escape even if I wanted to. Bitterness flooded Arya's mouth. I'm not his mate. I'm his sacrifice. That's not true. Evelyn crossed to her, taking Arya's face in her hands. The mate bond is real, child. That cannot be faked or forced. The moon goddess herself chooses mates, and she chose you for my son. But yes, fate has a cruel sense of humor, binding you to the one person who needs your blood to save his kingdom. Arya's eyes burned. She'd gone from one nightmare to another. From Damien's rejection to Chaol's desperate need. Does he love me at all? Or am I just a solution to his problem? I don't know, Evelyn said honestly. Chaol has carried the weight of this curse since his father died. He's watched his people suffer, watched children born weaker with each generation, watched the land his ancestors swore to protect turn poisonous. That kind of burden changes a person. Makes them capable of things they'd never normally consider. She paused. But I've also seen the way he looks at you. That's not calculation in his eyes, Arya. That's hunger. Need. Perhaps even the beginning of love. It doesn't matter. Arya pulled away, moving to the window. Below, the palace courtyard was lit with torches, wolves celebrating their king's mating. They had no idea their new Luna might be their executioner's offering. I can't do it. I can't sacrifice myself for people I don't know, for a kingdom I just arrived at. That's not fair. No, Evelyn agreed quietly. It's not fair at all. They stood in silence as darkness fell completely. Finally, Arya turned back. You said you haven't told Chaol everything about the ritual. What else is there? Evelyn's expression shuddered. That's between you and fate, child. When the time comes, you'll understand. For now. She moved to the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow, Chaol will want to begin testing your abilities. And Arya? She paused. Don't tell him we spoke. He'll be angry I shared even this much. Let him believe you're still innocent of the full truth. Why? Because hope is all that's keeping him sane. And if he knows you know, he'll see the rejection in your eyes before you even make a choice. After Evelyn left, Arya stayed in the tower until the celebrations below died down. Her mind spun with impossible choices and terrible truths. Finally, as midnight approached, she made her way back to her quarters. The rooms Chaol had given her were stunning, all silver and blue silk, with a bed large enough for 4 people and windows overlooking the northern forests. A servant had left food and wine, fresh clothes, everything she could possibly need. Everything except answers. Except choice. Except freedom. Arya tried to eat but couldn't stomach more than a few bites. The mate bond hummed in her chest, pulling her toward wherever Chaol was in the palace. Part of her wanted to go to him, to demand the truth from his own lips. But a larger part was terrified of what she'd see in his eyes. Would he admit he'd marked her knowing she might have to die? Or would he lie, tell her pretty words about fate and destiny while secretly counting down the days until he could use her blood to save his kingdom? Exhausted and overwhelmed, Arya finally crawled into bed. Sleep came in fits and starts, her dreams full of dying forests and silver blood and a wolf with desperate eyes. She woke to the sensation of being watched. The room was dark, only moonlight filtering through the windows. But there, beside her bed, stood a figure. Chaol. He was shirtless, wearing only sleep pants, his dark hair falling across his face. But something was wrong. His eyes were open but unfocused, glazed like he was sleepwalking. And he was whispering something, the words barely audible. Silver blood under the moon, break the chains, break the chains. Arya's heart hammered. She started to sit up, to speak his name, but something stopped her. The way he swayed slightly, the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, he wasn't really here. Not mentally. This was something else. 300 years, Cale whispered, his voice rough and strange. 300 years of rot. The land remembers. The land demands payment. His head tilted, as if listening to something Arya couldn't hear. Silver blood to wash away the stain. Silver blood to make the earth green again. Arya barely breathed. The mate bond was muted, as if Cale had closed himself off completely. Whatever state he was in, his wolf wasn't in control. Something else was. She came, Cale continued, taking a step closer to the bed. Finally came. The last daughter. The answer. His hand reached out, fingers trembling as they hovered over Arya's blanket-covered form. Have to make her understand. Have to make her choose. Can't force it. The goddess demands willing sacrifice. Willing. He stopped abruptly. His entire body went rigid. Then his eyes snapped into focus, no longer glazed but sharp and aware and horrified. Arya? His voice was his own again, confused and frightened. Why are you, how did I? He looked down at himself, standing beside her bed in the dark. Looked at his outstretched hand. Realization crashed over his features like a wave. No, he breathed. No, not again. Cale, what? He moved faster than she could track, suddenly on the bed, pinning her beneath him with his hands on either side of her head. His canines were extended, eyes wild with panic. What did I say? What did I say? Arya's pulse hammered against her throat. Up close, she could see he was terrified, not of her, but of himself. You were talking about silver blood. About the land demanding payment. You weren't really awake. Gods. Cale's arms shook. Tell me I didn't hurt you. Tell me I didn't. You didn't touch me. You were just standing there, whispering. Arya's hands came up instinctively, touching his chest. Through the skin, she felt his heart racing. How long has this been happening? Since my father died. The admission seemed torn from him. Since I took the crown and the curse fully transferred to me. Some nights I wake up in different parts of the palace with no memory of how I got there. Other times I come to in the middle of conversations I don't remember starting. His eyes squeezed shut. I'm losing myself to it. To whatever magic is eating this kingdom. The curse is more than just dying crops and sick wolves. It's in me. In my blood. Every Alpha King since Magnus has suffered this way, the madness getting worse with each generation. My father used to lock himself in his rooms for days, terrified of what he might do. Cale's voice cracked. He threw himself off the eastern tower 3 years ago. Said it was better to die by his own hand than let the curse use him to hurt someone he loved. Horror washed through Arya. Cale. I should go. He started to pull away, but Arya's hands tightened on his chest. Wait. She didn't know what she was doing, only that she couldn't let him leave like this. Couldn't let him face whatever demons plagued him alone. Stay. Just, stay. I could hurt you. In my sleep, I could. You won't. Arya didn't know how she knew, but she was certain. The bond won't let you. And I'm not afraid. That was a lie. She was terrified. But not of him, of the situation, of the impossible choices ahead, of the curse that was slowly destroying the male fate had bound her to. Cale stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he shifted his weight, lying down beside her instead of over her. He kept distance between them, like he didn't trust himself to get too close. When I was sleepwalking, he said quietly. Was I coming toward you? Or away? Toward. The curse knows you're here. Knows what you are. His hand found hers in the darkness, fingers tangling together. It's going to get worse now. The pull toward you, the need. I'll try to stay away, but... Don't. The word came out before Arya could stop it. Don't stay away. Whatever this is, whatever's happening, we face it together. That's what mates do, isn't it? Mates. Kale's laugh was bitter. You should reject me. Find a way to break the bond before you're too deep in this nightmare. Is that what you want? Silence. Then, no. Gods help me, no. I want you here, want you safe, want you mine even though keeping you might destroy you. He turned his head to look at her. I'm a selfish bastard, Arya. You should know that about me. I'm starting to figure it out. She shifted closer, testing his reaction. When he didn't pull away, she pressed herself against his side, her head on his shoulder. Through the bond, she felt his surprise and his relief mixing together. Tell me about the curse. All of it. No more secrets. So he did. Lying there in the darkness, Kale told her everything, about Magnus' betrayal, about the witch's revenge, about how each Alpha King watched their kingdom die a little more. About the madness that came with the crown, the sleepwalking and the violent dreams, the way he sometimes heard voices whispering in languages he didn't understand. My father lasted 15 years before he couldn't take it anymore, Kale said. I've only been king for 3, and already I feel it eating at my mind. Some mornings I wake up and don't remember who I am for several minutes. Other times I find myself standing in places I have no memory of walking to. His voice dropped. Last month I woke up in the stables with a knife in my hand and blood on my clothes. One of the horses was dead, throat slit. I don't remember doing it. But who else could it have been? Arya's stomach turned. Does Marcus know? Marcus knows everything. He's been trying to help, researching cures, looking for ways to manage the symptoms. But there's only one real solution. Kale's hand tightened on hers. Silver blood. A descendant of the woman Magnus rejected. Someone who can perform the ritual and break the curse forever. And that's me. That's you. He pulled back slightly, meeting her eyes. I know what you must think. That I marked you just to use you. And maybe that's partly true. But Arya, the moment I saw you, the moment I scented your blood, he stopped, struggling with words. It wasn't just about the curse. The bond is real. What I feel for you is real, even if the circumstances are twisted. Arya wanted to believe him. Wanted to think their mate bond was more than just convenient timing. But doubt gnawed at her. What happens if I can't perform the ritual? Or if my blood doesn't work? Then my kingdom dies. And I follow my father off the eastern tower before the madness makes me hurt someone I love. The casual way he said it made Arya's breath catch. Don't talk like that. It's the truth. Kale touched her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. I won't become a monster, Arya. I'll die first. They lay in silence after that, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them both. Finally, Arya spoke. Earlier today, I went exploring. There's a locked wing in the eastern part of the palace. A servant warned me away from it. Kale went rigid. You shouldn't go there. Why? What's in it? Portraits. Records. Evidence of what the curse does to my family line. His voice was hollow. Every Alpha King since Magnus, documented in their final days. The madness, the decay. It's not something you need to see. But Arya's curiosity was piqued now. I want to see it. I want to understand what we're facing. Arya. If my blood is supposed to fix this, I need to know everything. No more protecting me from the truth. Kale studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Tomorrow. I'll take you there myself. But be warned, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you might not want to stay after. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. He pulled her closer, tucking her against his chest. Ask me again after you see what's in that wing. They stayed like that until dawn, neither of them sleeping. Arya could feel Kale's tension, the way he fought to stay present and aware. Every so often he'd whisper something, words she couldn't quite make out, and his grip would tighten like he was afraid she'd disappear. As gray light filtered through the windows, Arya finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. The deer I saw on our way here. The dead one surrounded by blackened earth. What killed it? Kale's expression darkened. The curse. It's spreading faster now, reaching beyond the palace grounds. Animals that drink from corrupted streams die within hours. Plants that grow in poisoned soil wither. And wolves, he stopped, jaw clenching. What about wolves? 3 children died last month. Born too weak to survive their first shift. Before the curse, we might lose 1 infant every few years. Now it's almost monthly. Raw pain filled his voice. I'm watching my people fade, Arya. Watching the future die 1 child at a time. And I can't stop it. Can't fix it. Can't do anything except wait for someone like you to appear and hope to the gods that your blood is the answer. Arya's throat tightened. She understood now why he'd been so desperate. This wasn't about ambition or power, it was about survival. About watching your world die and being helpless to stop it. I'll try, she whispered. Whatever this ritual is, whatever it takes, I'll try. Kale's eyes closed, relief washing over his features. Through the bond, she felt his gratitude and his guilt mixing together. You're too good for this world. Too good for me. Let me be the judge of that. A knock at the door interrupted them. Marcus's voice called out, respectful but urgent. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion. But there's been another incident. The Eastern Forest. Kale was up and moving before Marcus finished speaking. He paused at the door, looking back at Arya. Stay here. I'll come back for you. But Arya was already out of bed, pulling on the clothes from the night before. No. I'm coming with you. If this is my kingdom now too, I need to see what's happening. Pride flickered in Kale's eyes. He didn't argue, just waited while she dressed, then led her through the palace corridors at a near run. They emerged into cold morning air, Marcus and a group of guards falling in around them. They headed toward the eastern forest, the same direction Arya had seen the dead deer. As they got closer, Arya smelled it, rot and corruption, thick enough to make her gag. The trees here were gray and twisted, their branches bare despite it being spring. And on the ground. Gods, Arya breathed. A circle of dead earth spread before them, maybe 30 feet across. At its center lay not 1 deer, but 5. Wolves too. Small ones. The children Kale had mentioned, born too weak to survive. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the way the blackness pulsed, like something alive. Like something hungry. And as Arya stared at it, she felt something pull at her. A connection. A recognition. The darkness knew her. And it wanted her to come closer. Don't, Kale said sharply, grabbing her arm. Don't go near it. But Arya barely heard him. She was staring at the corrupted earth, at the death spreading through Kale's kingdom. And deep in her blood, something silver and ancient was waking up. Responding to the call. When she finally looked away, looked up at Kale's terrified face, she understood. This wasn't just about performing a ritual or breaking a curse. This was about facing something that had been waiting 300 years for someone with her blood to arrive. And whatever it was hungry. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. Arya couldn't tear her eyes from the blackened earth. The pull was magnetic, insistent, like invisible threads wrapped around her ribs and tugging her forward. Arya. Kale's voice cut through the fog in her mind. Step back. Now. She blinked, suddenly aware that she'd moved 3 feet closer to the corruption without realizing it. Her hand was outstretched, fingers reaching toward the pulsing darkness. Kale yanked her backward, putting his body between her and the cursed ground. What the hell were you doing? I don't know. Her voice shook. It was calling to me. I could feel it, like it recognized something in my blood. Marcus exchanged a look with Kale that Arya couldn't read. Your Majesty, if the curse is already responding to her presence. I know. Kale's jaw was tight. Get everyone back to the palace. Post guards around this area. No one comes near it. He turned to Arya. We need to talk. Privately. They walked back in silence, Kale's hand wrapped around hers like he was afraid she'd bolt. The mate bond hummed with his anxiety and something else, determination laced with dread. He was going to tell her something, and he wasn't sure how she'd react. Instead of returning to her quarters or his, Kale led her to a part of the palace she hadn't seen yet. They climbed stone stairs that grew narrower with each floor, until finally they emerged onto a tower balcony. The view stretched for miles, forests and mountains and valleys that should have been beautiful but were instead tinged with gray. My father used to come here, Kale said, leaning against the stone railing. When the madness got too loud, when he couldn't stand being around people. He'd stand right here and stare out at the kingdom he was failing to protect. His voice dropped. The morning he died, he stood here for 3 hours. Then he climbed over the railing and jumped. Arya's chest tightened. Kale. You want answers. So I'm giving them to you. All of them. He turned to face her, silver eyes haunted. 300 years ago, my ancestor Alpha King Magnus was in love with a woman named Celeste. She was silver blood, descended directly from the moon goddess's chosen line. They were fated mates, or so everyone believed. But Magnus was ambitious. The neighboring territories were threatening war, and he needed political alliances more than he needed love. So he rejected her. Worse. He used her. Let her believe they'd marry, let her help him win the war with her healing abilities and her visions from the goddess. Then, the day after his victory, he publicly announced his engagement to another woman, the daughter of his strongest ally. Kale's hands clenched on the railing. Celeste was heartbroken. Humiliated. She begged the moon goddess for justice. And the goddess cursed Magnus' bloodline. Not the goddess. Celeste's mother. Kale looked at her. She was a witch. Powerful and vengeful. When Celeste threw herself into the river and drowned, her mother unleashed hell. She cursed Magnus and every heir who'd carry his blood. The land would reject them, slowly dying under their rule. They'd be plagued by madness, driven to destroy the very thing they were supposed to protect. And there was only one way to break it. Arya's mouth went dry. Silver blood. A willing sacrifice from Celeste's line. Someone who'd choose to bind themselves to the land, to become the living vessel that would heal the corruption and break the curse. He paused. But it has to be willing. The descendant has to choose it freely, knowing what it means. Otherwise, the ritual fails and the curse gets worse. What does it mean? What happens to the person who performs the ritual? Kale's expression shuddered. I don't know all the details. The records from that time are incomplete, deliberately destroyed by Magnus to prevent anyone from finding a solution. What I know is that it requires silver blood, it requires willingness, and it requires... He stopped. Requires what? A sacrifice. His voice was barely audible. Something given up. Something lost. But I don't know if that means death or something else. Arya's wolf whimpered. She thought of Evelyn's words, the kind of sacrifice you don't walk away from. And you tracked me for months, knowing this. I've been searching for 3 years. Every pack, every territory, looking for someone with even a trace of silver blood. Kale moved closer, his presence overwhelming. I'd hear rumors, a healer here, a woman with strange abilities there. I'd investigate, and each time it led nowhere. Then 6 months ago, I heard about an Omega in the Silver Moon pack who'd healed completely from a wound that should have left scars. Whose eyes sometimes flashed silver when she was angry. You spied on me. I watched you. Tried to sense if you were what I'd been searching for. And the moment I got close enough to scent your blood, his hand came up, cupping her face. I knew. You were the answer. The descendant I needed. So you crashed the mating ceremony and marked me before I could refuse. Yes. No apology in his voice, just brutal honesty. I knew if I approached you normally, told you what I needed, you'd never believe me. Or worse, you'd be too afraid to help. So I used the mate bond. Made it impossible for you to leave. Arya should have been furious. Should have felt trapped and manipulated. But through the bond, she felt his anguish. His desperation. And underneath it all, something that felt dangerously like genuine emotion. Did you know we were true mates? She asked. Or did you just hope the bond would take? I didn't know. Kale's thumb brushed her cheek. I thought I could force a connection, use my alpha power to create something strong enough to keep you here. But the moment I marked you, the moment the bond snapped into place, his voice roughened. It was real. More real than anything I've ever felt. You weren't just a solution anymore. You were mine. And I was terrified. Of what? Of losing you. Of asking you to sacrifice yourself for my kingdom. Of falling in love with someone I might have to watch die. His forehead pressed against hers. I'm still terrified. The confession undid something in Arya's chest. She'd been so focused on whether he was using her that she hadn't considered he might actually care. Might be suffering just as much as she was. Show me, she said. Show you what? The locked wing. The portraits of your ancestors. I need to see what this curse does. What we're really facing. Kale pulled back, searching her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod. All right. But Arya, it's not easy to look at. They descended the tower and made their way through the palace. Servants bowed as they passed, but Arya barely noticed. Her mind was spinning with everything Kale had told her, trying to piece together a curse that had lasted 3 centuries and might require her death to break. The locked wing was in the eastern section, behind a door reinforced with iron and carved with symbols Arya didn't recognize. Kale produced a key from somewhere, and the lock clicked open with a sound like a coffin closing. The corridor beyond was dark and cold. Kale lit torches as they walked, the flames casting dancing shadows on portraits that lined both walls. Each one is an Alpha King, Kale said quietly. Starting with Magnus. The first portrait showed a handsome man with dark hair and cruel eyes. He looked strong, powerful, untouched by the curse he'd brought upon his descendants. But the next portrait, Magnus in his later years, told a different story. His hair had gone white, his face gaunt, his eyes wild with madness. They moved down the corridor, and Arya watched the curse progress through generations. Each Alpha King started strong and ended broken. Some portraits showed physical decay, skin turning gray, eyes going milky white. Others showed the madness more clearly, men clawing at their own faces, or standing in twisted positions like their bodies no longer belonged to them. This was my grandfather, Kale said, stopping before a portrait of a man who looked eerily like him. He lasted 20 years. By the end, he couldn't speak. Just howled like an animal. Arya's hand found his. Kale. And this was my father. The portrait showed a man in his prime, strong, handsome, regal. But next to it hung another painting, this one clearly done in the weeks before his death. The man was unrecognizable. Skeletal thin, eyes sunken, one hand raised like he was reaching for something that wasn't there. He commissioned this himself, Kale said. Wanted me to see what I was inheriting. What I'd become if I didn't find a way to break the curse. At the end of the corridor hung an empty frame. No portrait, just bare canvas. That's for me, Cale said. When my time comes. Arya stared at the empty frame, at the space waiting to be filled with Cale's descent into madness. The reality of what he faced, what they faced, crashed over her like a wave. I won't let that happen to you, she whispered. You might not have a choice. There's always a choice. She turned to him, pulling his face down to hers. I'll find a way to break this curse without dying. His mouth crashed onto hers, cutting off her words. The kiss was desperate and consuming, full of fear and need and something that tasted like goodbye. Cale's hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer as he backed her against the wall. The mate bond exploded between them, flooding Arya with his emotions, desire and terror and a fierce possessiveness that made her wolf purr. I can't lose you, Cale breathed against her lips. I've only had you for 2 days and I can't. Then don't. Arya kissed him again, harder this time. Don't lose me. Don't give up. We'll figure this out together. His hands roamed her body, desperate and reverent at once. The kiss deepened, turning from desperate to devouring. Arya had never been kissed like this, like she was air and he was drowning, like she was the only thing standing between him and oblivion. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cale rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. Probably not. She smiled despite everything. But you're stuck with me anyway. They stood there in the corridor of ghosts, surrounded by the evidence of a curse that had destroyed generations, and somehow found comfort in each other. It should have been depressing, standing in that place. But instead, Arya felt something like hope blooming in her chest. They could beat this. They had to. Your Majesty. Marcus's voice echoed down the corridor. Sorry to interrupt, but we have visitors. Beta Damien of the Silvermoon Pack has arrived. Arya's blood went cold. What? Cale's expression hardened instantly. What the hell is he doing here? He claims he's here to negotiate trade agreements. Says Alpha Thomas sent him as an ambassador. Marcus's tone suggested he didn't believe it for a second. He's demanding an audience with you. Tell him to go to hell. I would love to. But he's not alone. He brought Celine with him, and she's claiming diplomatic immunity as the Alpha's daughter. Marcus grimaced. We can't turn them away without insulting Silvermoon and potentially starting a political incident. Cale cursed viciously. Through the bond, Arya felt his rage and his frustration. He wanted to tear Damien apart for showing his face here, but his position as Alpha King meant he couldn't act on impulse. Fine. I'll see him. But brief audience only, and I want guards present the entire time. Cale looked at Arya. Stay away from him. I don't trust what he's doing here. Neither do I. But Arya's mind was already racing. Why would Damien come here after what happened at the ceremony? What could he possibly want? They left the locked wing and returned to the main palace. Cale had to meet with his council before seeing Damien, so he left Arya in her quarters with 2 guards posted outside her door. She tried to rest, tried to make sense of everything she'd learned, but her mind wouldn't settle. A servant brought lunch, food Arya picked at without tasting. Another brought fresh clothes, court-appropriate in case she needed to attend any official functions. Arya changed mechanically, still thinking about cursed earth and dead children and portraits of madness. She was staring out the window, watching the gray forest beyond the palace walls, when she noticed the piece of paper on her pillow. She hadn't heard anyone enter. The guards would have stopped unauthorized visitors. But there it was, a folded note sitting exactly where her head would rest tonight. Arya's hands shook as she opened it. The Alpha King marked you to kill you. The ritual requires your death on the blood moon, 21 days away. Run while you still can. The east gate is unguarded at midnight. Save yourself. The words blurred as Arya read them again. 21 days. The blood moon. Her death. Evelyn had said the ritual required sacrifice, but she hadn't said death. Cale had said he didn't know the full details. But someone knew. Someone wanted her to know. Was it true? Had Cale known all along that breaking the curse meant she'd die? Powerful stuff, isn't it? Arya spun around. Damien leaned against her doorway, arms crossed, that familiar smirk on his handsome face. He looked exactly as she remembered, charming and cruel and completely at ease. Like he hadn't destroyed her life just days ago. How did you get past the guards? Arya demanded. I'm very good at being where I'm not supposed to be. You should remember that about me. He pushed off the doorframe, moving into her room with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Did you get my note? I had one of the kitchen servants deliver it. Amazing what people will do for a little gold. You sent this? Arya held up the note, anger flooding through her. What game are you playing? No game. Just trying to save your life. Damien's expression turned serious. You really think the Alpha King wants you for love? He needs your blood, Arya. Needs you to die so he can break his family's curse. The blood moon is in 21 days, and that's when he'll ask you to perform the ritual. And when you do, he drew a finger across his throat. You're done. You're lying. Am I? He moved closer, and Arya had to force herself not to back away. Think about it. He tracked you for months. Marked you immediately without giving you a choice. He's keeping you isolated here, feeding you half-truths while he prepares for the ritual. And when the time comes, he'll ask you to sacrifice yourself for his kingdom. For wolves you don't even know. Doubt curled in Arya's stomach. Everything Damien said aligned with what she'd learned, the tracking, the urgent marking, the vague details about the ritual. Was Cale really planning to let her die? Why do you care? She asked. You rejected me. Humiliated me. Why would you suddenly want to save me? Because I made a mistake. Damien's voice softened, and he reached for her hand. Arya jerked away. I was an idiot, Arya. I let Selim manipulate me, let pride blind me to what was right in front of me. You were good and kind and you loved me, and I threw that away. I'm here to make it right. By convincing me to run away? By giving you a choice. The Alpha King never did that. Damien's eyes were earnest now, pleading. Come back to Silvermoon with me. We'll tell Alpha Thomas everything, about the curse, about Cale's plans. He'll give you sanctuary. You'll be safe. And you'll have me back under your control. I'll protect you. He stepped closer, close enough that Arya could smell his familiar scent, woods and earth and lies. I know I don't deserve another chance. But Arya, I can't watch you die for a kingdom that isn't yours. Please. Let me fix this. For a moment, just a moment, Arya wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that maybe Damien had realized what he'd lost, that maybe she could go back to the life she'd known before everything fell apart. But then she remembered his voice at the ceremony. Worthless Omega blood. Remembered the laughter, the humiliation, the way he'd revealed their entire courtship had been a lie to make Celine jealous. And she remembered Cale's hands in her hair, his desperate kiss, the way he'd looked at her like she was his salvation and his damnation all at once. Get out, Arya said quietly. Damien's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was believing you the first time. She moved toward the door, intending to call the guards. Whatever you're really here for, it's not to save me. So get out of my room and out of this palace before I tell Cale you threatened his mate. Threatened? Damien laughed, but it sounded forced. I'm trying to help you. No. You're trying to manipulate me again. But I'm not that desperate Omega anymore. Arya opened the door. Guards. The two wolves posted outside rushed in immediately, hands on their weapons. They took one look at Damien and their expressions turned murderous. Escort Beta Damien back to the guest quarters, Arya said, channeling every ounce of authority she could muster. And inform the Alpha King that our visitor attempted to enter my private chambers without permission. Damien's eyes flashed with anger, but he raised his hands in surrender. This isn't over, Arya. You'll see I'm right. And when you do, when Cale asks you to die for him, remember that I tried to warn you. As the guards escorted him out, Arya's hands shook. She looked down at the note still clutched in her fist. The ritual requires your death on the blood moon, 21 days away. Was it true? And if it was, would Cale really ask her to sacrifice herself? Or worse, would she do it anyway, because the mate bond made her love him even knowing it would kill her? Arya sank onto her bed, the note burning in her hand like evidence of a crime not yet committed. 21 days. She had 21 days to find the truth. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. Arya didn't go to dinner that night. She couldn't face Cale, couldn't look him in the eyes and pretend she wasn't terrified of what Damien had revealed. The ritual requires your death on the blood moon, 21 days away. She paced her chambers as darkness fell, the note burning a hole in her pocket. Every time she tried to convince herself Damien was lying, doubt crept back in. Cale had been desperate enough to track her for months. Desperate enough to mark her without permission. Would he be desperate enough to let her die? The mate bond pulled at her chest, urging her to go to him. To trust him. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. A knock at the door made her jump. Come in. Marcus entered, his expression concerned. Luna, the Alpha King is asking for you. He's worried, you didn't come to dinner. Tell him I'm tired. I need rest. With respect, I don't think that will satisfy him. Marcus stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. He knows Damien came to see you. He's furious about it, blames himself for not having tighter security. He wants to make sure you're all right. I'm fine. Are you? Marcus studied her face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Arya's hand went to her pocket, feeling the outline of the note. Should she tell Marcus? Could she trust him? He was Cale's beta, loyal to him above all else. But there was kindness in his eyes, and something that looked like genuine concern. Damien told me something, she said slowly. About the ritual. About what it requires. Marcus's expression tightened. What did he say? That it requires my death. That Cale knows this, and he's counting down to the blood moon when he'll ask me to sacrifice myself. She pulled out the note, handing it to Marcus. He left this for me. Marcus read it, his jaw clenching. And you believe him? I don't know what to believe. Cale's been honest about needing my blood, about tracking me, about the curse. But he's been vague about the ritual itself. About what happens to me. Arya's voice cracked. Is it true, Marcus? Does the ritual require my death? The beta was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. I don't know the full details. The records from Magnus' time are incomplete. But yes, the ritual requires a sacrifice. What kind? He shook his head. Cale has been researching obsessively, trying to find alternatives. He doesn't want you to die, Arya. You have to believe that. But if there's no alternative? If it comes down to me or his kingdom? Marcus met her eyes. Then I think you already know what choice he'll make. What any alpha would make. The needs of the many outweigh the life of one omega. Arya's laugh was bitter. Story of my life. That's not what I meant. Marcus stepped closer. Cale cares about you. I've known him since he was a boy, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. But he's also a king. And sometimes kings have to make impossible choices. The truth of it settled over Arya like a shroud. She'd been so caught up in the mate bond, in feeling wanted for the first time in her life, that she'd let herself forget what she was to Cale. Not a mate. A solution. I need to talk to him, she said. I need to hear it from his own mouth. He's in his study. I'll take you. A crash from the hallway cut him off. Then screams. The sound of metal on metal. Marcus's hand went to his sword. Stay behind me. But Arya's wolf was already surging forward, sensing danger. She followed Marcus to the door, and he opened it carefully, peering out. The 2 guards who'd been posted outside her chambers were dead. Their throats slit, blood pooling on the marble floor. And coming down the hallway, moving with deadly purpose, were 6 figures dressed in black, faces covered, weapons drawn. Assassins, Marcus breathed. Get back. They burst through the door before he could finish. Marcus met the first one with his sword, the clash of steel echoing through the chamber. Arya scrambled backward, looking for a weapon, finding nothing. 2 assassins broke past Marcus, heading straight for her. One had a blade that gleamed silver, made to kill wolves, to prevent healing. The other carried a vial of something that smelled wrong, chemical and deadly. Arya's wolf surged to the surface. She shifted mid-leap, her white wolf smaller than most but fast. She caught the first assassin's arm in her jaws, biting down hard. He screamed, dropping the silver blade. The second assassin threw the vial. It shattered against the wall behind Arya, and acrid smoke filled the air. Poison. Her wolf's eyes watered, her lungs burning. Then the door exploded inward. Kale stood in the doorway, and he wasn't a king anymore, he was a monster. His eyes glowed pure silver, his canines extended, and the power rolling off him made the air itself tremble. He took in the scene in half a heartbeat, Marcus fighting 2 assassins, Arya cornered by poison smoke, dead guards in the hallway. His roar shook the palace. He moved like liquid death. The assassin closest to Arya didn't even have time to scream before Kale's hand closed around his throat and crushed his windpipe. He dropped the body and turned on the next one, catching the blade meant for his chest and snapping it like a twig. You dare, Kale snarled, his voice more animal than human. You dare touch what's mine? The remaining assassins realized their mistake. They tried to run. Kale didn't let them. What followed was brutal and efficient. Kale fought like he'd been born to kill, each movement precise, each strike lethal. He broke bones with his bare hands, tore through flesh like paper. Blood splattered across the walls, the floor, his skin. Arya shifted back to human form, pressing herself against the wall as she watched her mate become something terrifying. This was the Alpha King at his full power, and it was beautiful and horrifying in equal measure. Marcus managed to subdue one assassin, forcing him to his knees. The others were dead or dying. Kale stood in the center of the carnage, chest heaving, covered in blood that wasn't his own. Then his eyes found Arya. In an instant, the monster disappeared. He was across the room in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that stole her breath. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? Arya, answer me. I'm fine. Her hands came up to his face, bloody and brutal and hers. I'm fine, Kale. You got here in time. He buried his face in her neck, breathing her in like she was oxygen. Through the bond, she felt his terror and his rage warring for dominance. He'd thought he'd lost her. For a moment, he'd thought he was too late. How did you know? She asked. The bond. His voice was muffled against her skin. I felt your fear. Felt something was wrong. I ran. He pulled back, looking at her with eyes still half wild. If I'd been even a minute later. But you weren't. Arya's hands were shaking. You saved me. Your Majesty. Marcus stood over the surviving assassin, his sword at the man's throat. We need answers. Now. Kale's expression hardened. He released Arya reluctantly, turning to face the assassin. When he spoke, his voice was cold enough to freeze blood. Who sent you? The assassin, young, barely 20, was trembling. I don't know names. We were hired through an intermediary. Paid half up front, half on completion. Completion of what? Kill the silver blood. Make it look like rogues. The assassin's eyes darted to Arya. Someone wants her dead before the blood moon. Arya's stomach dropped. So Damien had been telling the truth about that, at least. The blood moon. 21 days away. Who hired you? Kale's hand closed around the assassin's throat, not quite choking but close. Give me a name or I'll rip it from your dying mind. Elder Thorn. The assassin gasped. Elder Thorn sent the orders. He said with her dead, the curse would never break. That you'd go mad and he could claim the throne during the chaos. He's been planning this for years, waiting for the silver blood to appear. Kale released him with a sound of disgust. Elder Thorn. One of his father's oldest advisors, someone Kale had trusted to help run the kingdom. A traitor in his own council. Marcus, arrest Thorn. Bring him to the throne room. I want. The assassin started laughing. It was a horrible sound, wet and choking. You think Thorn is the threat? You stupid bastard. He's just a pawn. Kale went very still. What did you say? You really don't know, do you? The assassin's laugh turned hysterical. The real enemy has been here for 20 years. Waiting. Watching. Biding their time until the silver blood returned. His eyes rolled back, foam appearing at his lips. And now it's too late. She's already. He convulsed. Blood poured from his mouth, his nose, his eyes. Marcus tried to hold him down, to get answers, but within seconds the assassin was dead. Poison pill, Marcus said grimly. Hidden in his mouth. He bit down rather than tell us more. Kale stood over the body, his expression carved from stone. Around them, the room was destroyed, furniture overturned, blood everywhere, the bodies of 5 assassins and 2 guards. And in the center of it all, Arya stood shaking, trying to process what the dying man had said. The real enemy has been here for 20 years. Kale, she started, but the words died in her throat. Luna Evelyn stood in the doorway. Her face was pale, her silver eyes wide with something that looked like horror. Or guilt. Or both. She stared at the carnage, at the dead assassin on the floor, at Arya and Kale standing together covered in blood. What happened? Her voice was barely a whisper. Someone tried to kill my mate. Kale's voice was dangerous. Assassins sent by Elder Thorn. Though apparently, he's not working alone. His eyes narrowed on his mother. The dying assassin said someone's been in the palace for 20 years. Someone who's been waiting for the silver blood to return. Evelyn's expression flickered, just for a second, but Arya saw it. Recognition. Fear. And underneath it all, something that looked like resignation. Mother, Kale said slowly. What do you know about this? Evelyn's hands twisted together. I need to speak with you. Both of you. But not here. Not surrounded by death. Tell me now. Kale, please. There are things you don't understand. Things I've kept hidden to protect you. To protect me? Kale's voice rose. Someone just tried to murder my maid in her own chambers. My guards are dead. And you're telling me there are secrets? What the hell have you been hiding? Evelyn looked at Arya then, and her expression was heartbreaking. I'm so sorry, child. I never wanted this. But you have to understand, I did what I thought was right. What I thought would save everyone. What did you do? Arya asked, dread coiling in her stomach. Before Evelyn could answer, Marcus appeared in the doorway, dragging a struggling figure. Elder Thorn, gray-haired and distinguished, fought against the beta's grip. Your Majesty, I can explain, Thorn gasped. I was trying to protect the kingdom. The silver blood, she's dangerous. The curse. Is my bloodline, Evelyn interrupted, her voice suddenly strong. The curse that's killing this kingdom. It came from my family line. Not Magnus' betrayed lover. Me. The silence that followed was absolute. Arya stared at Evelyn, trying to process the words. Cale looked like he'd been struck. Even Thorne stopped struggling, shock written across his face. What? Cale's voice was barely audible. I'm Celeste's descendant, Evelyn said, tears streaming down her face. The witch who cursed Magnus was my great-great-grandmother. And when I married your father, when I bore you, I brought the curse into the bloodline from both sides. Made it stronger. More permanent. She looked at Arya. And you, child. You're my sister's daughter. Which means I'm cursed blood too, Arya finished, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. Not the cure. The curse. Evelyn nodded, her face crumpling. I thought I could control it. Thought I could protect you both. But I was wrong. So wrong. And now. The palace bells began to toll. Not the normal evening bells, but the emergency alarm. The sound that meant attack or invasion or catastrophe. Marcus ran to the window. Your Majesty. The Eastern Forest. It's, gods, it's spreading. The corruption. It's moving toward the palace. Arya joined him, looking out into the darkness. And there, visible even in the night, was a tide of blackness rolling across the land. The cursed earth, no longer content to stay in one place. Moving with purpose. Moving toward her. It knows you're here, Evelyn said quietly. The curse knows silver blood has returned to the palace. And it's hungry. Cale stood frozen, his world crashing down around him. His mother was the source of the curse. His mate wasn't the cure. And the corruption that had been killing his kingdom for 300 years was coming for them all. Arya felt it through the bond, his despair, his rage, his absolute sense of betrayal. She went to him, taking his blood-stained hand in hers. We'll figure this out, she said, even though she had no idea how. Together. Cale looked at her, his silver eyes hollow. There's something else. Something I need to tell you before, he stopped, jaw clenching. The ritual. It doesn't require your death, Arya. Relief flooded through her. Then Damien was lying. It requires mine. The world stopped. What? Arya breathed. I've known for weeks. Found the complete records in my father's private study. The silver blood doesn't sacrifice themselves, they transfer the curse. Channel it into someone willing to bear it. Someone strong enough to contain it permanently. Cale's voice was flat. I was always going to be the sacrifice. I was going to ask you to perform the ritual, to save my kingdom by trapping the curse in me. And then I was going to walk into that eastern forest and let it consume me before it could spread to anyone else. No. Arya's hands tightened on his. No, that's not, we'll find another way. There is no other way. And now we know why. He looked at his mother with eyes full of pain. The curse comes from both bloodlines. Mine and Arya's. The only way to break it permanently is to merge it, combine both sources of cursed blood and let them destroy each other. Which means both of us, Arya said, understanding flooding through her with cold certainty. We both have to die. Outside, the corruption crept closer. In the hallway, guards shouted orders. And in the throne room somewhere below, Elder Thorne's voice could be heard screaming about traitors and curses and the end of everything. Cale pulled Arya into his arms, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a dissolving world. I'm sorry, he whispered against her hair. I'm so sorry I brought you into this. I'm not. And she meant it. Even knowing what it might cost, even staring at death and betrayal and impossible choices, she wasn't sorry. Because for the first time in her life, she'd felt wanted. Loved. Home. Even if home was burning down around them. Through the window, the tide of blackness rolled closer. And somewhere in the palace, someone was laughing. The real enemy. The one who'd been here for 20 years. Waiting for this exact moment. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 6. The palace was in chaos. Guards ran through corridors, shouting orders. Servants fled toward the inner chambers, away from windows that faced the encroaching darkness. And in the war room, Cale stood with his council, what remained of it after Elder Thorn's arrest, trying to organize a defense against something that couldn't be fought with swords. Arya watched from the doorway, invisible in the shadows. She'd left her blood-soaked chambers an hour ago, unable to stay in that room of death. Now she wandered the palace like a ghost, her mind spinning with impossible truths. The curse comes from both bloodlines. We both have to die. No. She refused to accept that. There had to be another way. There was always another way. Her feet carried her through hallways she was still learning, past portraits of dead kings and tapestries depicting battles long forgotten. She needed answers. Needed to understand the full scope of what they were facing. And there was one person who seemed to know more than she was saying. Arya found Evelyn in the palace library, surrounded by ancient texts and scrolls. The Queen Mother looked exhausted, her silver hair falling from its usually perfect arrangement, her elegant dress rumpled. She was reading something, a book so old the pages were crumbling, and tears streamed down her face. "Luna Evelyn," Arya said softly. Evelyn's head snapped up. For a moment, fear flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced by resignation. "Arya. I wondered when you'd come. We need to talk. Really talk. No more half-truths or cryptic warnings." Arya moved into the library, closing the door behind her. "You said the curse came from your bloodline. That you're descended from Celeste, the woman Magnus betrayed. But you also said I'm your niece, that my mother was your sister. Which means you and I both carry cursed blood." "Yes." Evelyn set down the ancient book with shaking hands. "Sit, child. This is going to take some explaining." Arya sat across from her, every muscle tense. "Start at the beginning." "The beginning." Evelyn's laugh was hollow. "The beginning was 300 years ago, when Magnus broke Celeste's heart. But the part that matters to us started 40 years ago, when I was born." She stood, moving to a locked cabinet. Inside were documents, birth records, family trees, letters yellowed with age. She spread them across the table between them. "I was born in Omega," Evelyn said. "Just like you. Born to a small pack in the Western Territories, descended from Celeste's line but so diluted by generations of mixing with other bloodlines that the silver blood was barely detectable." She traced her finger along a family tree. "My sister Elena, your mother, was 5 years younger. We were close, despite our parents' attempts to keep us separated for safety." "Why separate you?" "Because silver blood makes you a target. There are those who'd use it for power, for healing, for dark magic. Our parents thought if we were apart, we'd be harder to find." Evelyn's expression turned bitter. "They were wrong. A rogue pack attacked when I was 16. Killed our parents, tried to take Elena and me. We escaped, but we were separated in the chaos. I thought she was dead for 10 years. Arya's throat tightened. But she wasn't. No. She'd been taken in by another pack, hidden with a new name. By the time I found her, she was mated to your father and pregnant with you." Evelyn smiled sadly. She was happy. Safe. So I left her alone. Thought it was better if no one knew we were sisters, if no one connected us. "And you? How did you end up here?" "I met Cale's father at a territorial gathering. Alpha King Darius." Evelyn's expression softened with old love. "He was strong, commanding, everything an Alpha King should be. And he was my fated mate. I felt the bond the moment we met." She paused. "But I was an Omega. No one thought he'd choose me. They expected him to mate with someone powerful, someone who'd strengthen political alliances. But Darius didn't care about any of that. He chose me. Because you were his mate. Because he loved me. Evelyn's voice cracked. And because, though neither of us knew it then, I was exactly what the curse wanted. Silver blood brought directly into the Alpha King's bloodline. I didn't just marry into the cursed family. I made the curse stronger. More permanent. Arya felt cold. You couldn't have known. No. But I should have questioned why the curse got so much worse after I arrived. Why Darius started showing symptoms earlier than his father had, why the land died faster. Evelyn wiped her eyes. By the time I understood what I'd done, it was too late. Darius was already deep in the madness. And I was pregnant with Kale. So Kale has cursed blood from both parents. Yes. Which is why the curse has hit him harder and faster than any previous Alpha King. He's the culmination of 300 years of cursed bloodlines merging. Evelyn's hands clenched. I've spent 20 years trying to fix what I did. Researching, searching for answers. When Darius died, I thought I'd lose my mind from grief and guilt. But I couldn't. I had to save my son. And that's when you found the ritual. Yes. Hidden in texts so old they should have crumbled to dust. The true ritual, not the fragments Magnus left behind. Evelyn pulled out a leather-bound journal, handwritten in fading ink. It's not about sacrifice through death. It's about choice. About willingly binding yourself to the land, becoming the vessel through which the moon goddess's blessing can flow. Arya's heart pounded. What does that mean? Come with me. I'll show you. Evelyn led her deep into the palace, downstairs Arya didn't know existed, through passages that grew older and more primitive the further they descended. Finally, they emerged into a chamber carved from raw stone, a shrine that felt ancient and powerful. At its center stood an altar, and behind it, carved into the rock face itself, were symbols that made Arya's silver blood sing with recognition. This shrine was built by Celeste herself, Evelyn said, her voice echoing in the sacred space. Before she died. Before her mother cursed Magnus and his line. She carved the truth here, the way to break what would be broken. Arya approached the altar. The symbols were written in a language she shouldn't understand but somehow did, an ancient tongue that spoke directly to her blood, her bones, her wolf. Read it, Evelyn urged. Read what she wrote. Arya's fingers traced the carved words, and they lit up with silver light at her touch. The translation came to her mind unbidden. When blood calls to blood and curse devours curse, when the chosen daughter returns to the broken land, she must choose, sacrifice the beast within to save the kingdom without. Bind your life to the earth, become the vessel of blessing, lose your wolf to gain eternity. The moon goddess demands not death, but transformation. Not ending, but beginning. I don't understand, Arya whispered. The ritual doesn't kill you, Evelyn said. But it takes your wolf. Severs that part of you permanently. You become human, or something close to it. Immortal, bound to the land itself, channeling the goddess's healing power through your blood for as long as the Northern Territory exists. She paused. You'd save everyone. But you'd lose the core of who you are. Arya's wolf whimpered inside her chest, sensing the threat. To lose her wolf would be like losing half her soul. Wolves weren't just animals they could shift into, they were part of their identity, their essence. Without her wolf, what would she be? And there's no other way? Arya asked. No way to break the curse without. No. The goddess only accepts the king's true mate. I tried to offer myself, I'm silver blood too. But the ritual rejected me. It has to be you, Arya. You're the one the prophecy speaks of. The chosen daughter who returns to broken land. Evelyn's expression was anguished. I'm so sorry. I never wanted this burden to fall on you. But you're the only one who can save them. Arya turned back to the carved words, her mind reeling. She'd come here expecting death. But this was somehow worse. Living forever without her wolf, watching Kale grow old and die while she remained unchanged, bound to a land that wasn't even hers by birth. "There's something else," Evelyn said quietly. "Something the carving doesn't say, but that I discovered in my research. If you complete the ritual, you won't just lose your wolf. You'll become the moon goddess's avatar on Earth. Immortal, powerful, but also, alone. Because mortals age and die, and you won't. You'll watch Kale die. His children. Their children. Everyone you'll ever love, for centuries." The weight of it crushed Arya's lungs. "How is that different from death?" "I don't know, child. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's worse." Evelyn took Arya's hand. "But it would save the kingdom. Save Kale from the madness that killed his father. Give him a chance at a real life, even if you're not truly part of it." Arya pulled her hand away, anger surging through her grief. "You're asking me to give up everything. My wolf. My mortality. My future with my mate. How is that fair?" "It's not." Evelyn's voice was steady. "Nothing about this is fair. But fairness has nothing to do with it. This is about survival. About choosing between terrible options because there are no good ones left." Before Arya could respond, shouts echoed from above. The sound of fighting, steel on steel, growls and screams. They ran back through the passages, emerging into chaos. The throne room had become a battlefield. Wolves in human and animal form fought viciously, and at the center of it all, Damien. He stood over Marcus's fallen form, a silver blade dripping blood. Around him were guards loyal to Elder Thorn, wolves who'd been corrupted by promises of power. "There you are," Damien said when he saw Arya. His handsome face was twisted with hatred. "I was hoping you'd come. Thorn promised me that if I helped eliminate you, I'd get Selene and a position in his new order. But you know what? I think I'll just kill you myself." Kale appeared from a side entrance, his clothes torn and bloody. He took in the scene, Marcus wounded, Arya vulnerable, Damien with murder in his eyes, and his roar shook the palace foundations. But Damien was faster. He lunged, the silver blade aimed straight for Arya's heart. Time slowed. Arya felt something crack open inside her chest, not the mate bond, but something older. Deeper. Her silver blood began to glow beneath her skin, visible through her flesh like liquid moonlight. Power exploded outward. Silver light blasted from Arya's hands, catching Damien mid-leap and flinging him across the throne room. He hit the far wall with a sickening crunch and collapsed. The wolves loyal to Thorn scattered, terrified by what they'd witnessed. Arya stared at her hands. They were still glowing, silver light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. And her eyes, she could feel them changing, burning white-hot. "Arya," Kale breathed, approaching her slowly like she was a wild animal. "What?" "The prophecy," Evelyn whispered, her face pale. "Oh gods, I was right." "What prophecy?" Kale demanded. "She's not just silver blood." Evelyn stared at Arya with awe and horror. "She's the moon goddess's avatar. The vessel chosen to carry divine power. That's why the ritual will work for her when it wouldn't for me. That's why she can channel power without training." She paused. "And that's why completing the ritual won't just take her wolf. It'll make her fully immortal. Unchanging. Eternal." Kale's expression crumbled. "No. What does that mean?" Arya asked, though part of her already knew. "It means if you complete the ritual, you'll save everyone. But you'll become something more than mortal. Something that exists outside of normal time." Kale's voice was hollow. "And I'll stay human. I'll age. I'll die. And you'll go on without me. Forever." The silver light faded from Arya's hands, leaving her feeling empty and cold. Around them, guards were tending to Marcus, dragging Damien's unconscious body away, restoring order. But Arya couldn't focus on any of it. She looked at Kale, her mate, her king, the the male she'd known for only days but who felt like her entire world. And she looked at Evelyn, who'd lost her own mate to this curse and spent 20 years trying to save her son from the same fate. How long? Arya asked. If I do the ritual, how long will Cale live? A normal mortal lifespan, Evelyn said quietly. 50, maybe 60 years if he's lucky. The curse will be broken, so he won't die from madness. But he'll still be human. He'll still age. And I won't. No. You'll be 22 forever. You'll watch him grow old, watch him die, and then you'll continue. Alone. Bound to this land for eternity. Cale moved to her, taking her glowing hands in his blood-stained ones. Don't do it. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Arya whispered. You know that. Then we'll die together. Let the curse take us both. And your kingdom? Your people? The children being born too weak to survive? Arya's voice broke. I can't let them die, Cale. Not when I have the power to save them. Even if it costs you everything? Even then. They stared at each other, the weight of impossible choices crushing the air between them. Outside, the corrupted earth crept closer. Above them, the blood moon would rise in 20 days. 20 days to decide between love and duty. Between selfishness and sacrifice. Between dying young together or living forever alone. Arya had never wanted to be special. Never wanted to be chosen. She'd been content to be an Omega, invisible and overlooked. But fate had other plans. And the moon goddess was waiting. If you are enjoying this video, do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 7. 20 days became 20 hours became 20 minutes. The blood moon hung low on the horizon, swollen and red like a wound in the sky. Arya stood at her window watching it rise, feeling the pull of destiny tightening around her throat like a noose. Below, the palace was dying. 3 more children had been lost in the night. The corruption had spread to the palace walls, black tendrils creeping up the silver stone like veins of rot. Pack members were collapsing in the corridors, their wolves too weak to sustain them. And the madness, the curse's final gift, was spreading beyond just the Alpha King. Arya had watched a mother try to drown her own infant this morning, eyes glazed and empty, whispering about cursed blood and necessary sacrifices. It had taken 4 guards to subdue her, and even then she'd screamed that they were all already dead, that the land itself wanted them gone. The curse was reaching its crescendo. Tonight, under the blood moon, it would either break or consume them all. You don't have to do this. Arya turned to find Cale in her doorway. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, which was probably true. Dark circles shadowed his silver eyes, and his hands trembled slightly at his sides. The sleepwalking had gotten worse. Yesterday she'd found him in the eastern tower, standing at the edge like his father had, whispering about silver blood and necessary endings. Yes, I do, she said quietly. No. He crossed to her, taking her face in his hands with desperate gentleness. We'll evacuate. Move the entire pack to neutral territory. Let this cursed land rot and build somewhere new. And how long before the curse follows? Before it spreads to wherever you go? Arya covered his hands with hers. You know it won't stop, Cale. It's tied to your bloodline, to mine. We can't run from it. Then we fight it. Together. We are fighting it. This is how we win. She pulled his hands down, holding them between them. I've made my choice. Arya, please, his voice cracked. I can't watch you do this. Can't watch you give up everything for a kingdom that isn't even yours. These aren't your people. This isn't your curse to break. They're your people. That makes them mine. She touched his face, memorizing every line, every scar. And it's not just for you. It's for the children being born too weak to survive. For the mothers going mad trying to protect families from a curse they can't see. For every wolf who'll come after us, who deserves a chance to live without this shadow hanging over them. What about what you deserve? Kale's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You deserve a life, Arya. A real life with your wolf and your mate and children of your own. Not an eternity of loneliness watching everyone you love turn to dust. I know. And gods, she did know. The weight of what she was giving up pressed on her chest like a physical thing. But deserving something and being able to have it are two different things. This is the hand we were dealt. And I'm the only one who can play it. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. It's not for you. Arya's voice was steady, even as her heart shattered. It's for all of them. For the future. For the possibility that maybe, centuries from now, wolves will look back and remember that someone chose hope over despair. She paused. And Kale? 50 or 60 years with you, even if I have to watch you age while I don't, that's more than I ever thought I'd get. More than an Omega from Silvermoon Pack had any right to dream of. Before Kale could respond, Marcus burst through the door. Your Majesty, it's Thorn. He's escaped. Kale's expression hardened. How? His followers staged a coordinated attack. Killed 6 guards and freed him from the dungeons. Marcus's face was grim. But that's not all. He's heading for the shrine. He knows about the ritual. Arya's blood ran cold. How could he possibly? I told him. They all turned. Damien stood in the hallway, flanked by 2 guards. He looked terrible, bruises from Arya's power blast still mottling his face, one arm in a sling. But his eyes were clear and, for the first time since she'd known him, genuinely remorseful. You did what? Kale's voice was deadly quiet. I was working with Thorn. Told him everything I learned by eavesdropping on your conversations, by seducing palace servants for information. Damien couldn't meet Arya's eyes. I wanted power. Wanted to prove I was more than just a beta. And Thorn promised that if I helped him stop the ritual, he'd make me his second when he took the throne during the chaos. You bastard, Marcus breathed. I know. I know what I am. Damien finally looked at Arya. But I heard what you just said. About sacrifice. About choosing hope. And I realized, his voice broke. I realized that's what real strength looks like. Not power or position or pride. Just the courage to do the right thing even when it costs you everything. He turned to Kale. Thorn is possessed. I don't know by what, but he's not himself anymore. He speaks in tongues, his eyes glow red, and he's talking about finishing what was started 300 years ago. About destroying not just your kingdom but all werewolf kingdoms. Making sure Celeste's pain echoes forever. The vengeful spirit, Evelyn said, appearing behind Damien. I should have known. Celeste's mother didn't just curse the bloodline, she bound her own spirit to the curse, waiting for the moment when silver blood returned to finish her revenge. Then we kill Thorn, Kale said flatly. End this before. The palace shook. Not an earthquake, but something worse, the corruption surging forward all at once, a tidal wave of rot and death. Through the window, Arya watched the eastern forest turn completely black, the darkness spreading like spilled ink toward the palace. It's accelerating, Evelyn gasped. The blood moon is at its zenith. We're out of time. Arya felt it too, the pull toward the shrine, toward destiny. Her silver blood sang in her veins, responding to the moon's call. I have to go now. Before the moon sets. Not alone, Kale said. If Thorn is there. Then you'll stop him. Arya cupped his face one last time. Keep him away from me long enough to complete the ritual. That's all I need. Arya. She kissed him. Poured everything she felt into it, love and fear and goodbye. When she pulled back, tears were streaming down both their faces. I'll love you in this life and whatever comes after, she whispered. Even if it's centuries alone, even if I have to watch you grow old and die, I'd still choose you. Every time. Then she ran. Down through the palace, Marcus and Evelyn flanking her, guards falling in behind them. The corruption was inside the walls now, black veins spreading across the silver stone. Wolves were screaming, fighting, dying. But Arya couldn't stop. Couldn't help them. Not yet. The shrine entrance loomed ahead. And standing before it, wreathed in shadows that moved wrong, was Elder Thorn. Except it wasn't Thorn anymore. His eyes glowed crimson, his skin had taken on a gray, corpse-like quality, and when he smiled, his teeth were too sharp, too many. "The chosen daughter," he said in a voice that layered 3 octaves at once, "thorns, a woman's, something inhuman. Finally come to complete what should have been done 3 centuries ago." "Let her pass," Kale commanded, stepping between Arya and the possessed council member. "Your quarrel is with my bloodline, not hers. But she is your bloodline now. Marked. Mated. Bound." The thing wearing Thorn's body laughed. "Did you really think I'd let her break my beautiful curse? I've waited so long for this moment. For silver blood to return so I could corrupt it, turn the cure into the final poison that destroys everything. You won't touch her." Kale shifted, his massive wolf form filling the corridor. "No," the spirit agreed. "But they will." Thorn's followers emerged from the shadows, at least 20 wolves, all with the same glazed, possessed look. The corruption had spread to them, turned them into puppets of the vengeful spirit's will. "Go!" Marcus shouted, drawing his sword. "We'll hold them off." Arya ran. Behind her, she heard the clash of battle, Kale's roar, Marcus's war cry, Evelyn's voice chanting something in the old tongue. But she couldn't look back. Couldn't stop. The shrine entrance was steps away when Damien appeared, blocking her path. "No," Arya breathed, preparing to fight. But Damien stepped aside. "Go. Finish it. I'll make sure nothing follows you." "Why are you helping me?" "Because you were right. About everything." He smiled sadly. "I really did love you, Arya. I was just too weak to choose you when it mattered. Let me be strong now. Let me do this one thing right." Arya wanted to say something, forgiveness, gratitude, goodbye. But there was no time. She ran past him into the shrine, and heard him shout behind her. "Come on, you bastards. You want the silver blood? You'll have to go through me." The shrine was exactly as Arya remembered, ancient stone, carved symbols, the altar at its center. The blood moon's light streamed through an opening in the ceiling, painting everything crimson. Arya stepped into the circle of moonlight and felt the ritual activate. Her blood began to glow. The symbols on the walls lit up silver, responding to her presence. And from somewhere deep in the earth, she heard a voice, old and vast and infinitely patient. "Chosen daughter. Will you give what must be given? Will you bind yourself to broken land and heal what was shattered?" "Yes," Arya whispered. The voice, the moon goddess herself, sighed with something like relief. "Then speak the words. Surrender the beast. Become the vessel." Arya began to recite the ancient words carved on the altar, the ones only silver blood could read. They came from her lips in a language she'd never learned but somehow knew, each syllable ringing with power. Her wolf stirred. Realizing what was happening. Realizing this was goodbye. "No," her wolf whimpered. "Please. Don't do this." "I'm sorry," Arya sobbed, still speaking the ritual words. "I'm so sorry. We'll die. Without me, you'll be empty. Broken. I know. But they'll live. That has to be enough." Her wolf howled, a sound of pure anguish that came from Arya's throat and echoed through the shrine, through the palace, through the entire kingdom. Every wolf within miles felt it. The sound of a soul splitting in two. Behind her, Arya heard fighting at the entrance. Kale's voice, desperate and furious. Damien screaming. The wet sound of violence. "Get to her." Thorn's multi-layered voice commanded. "Stop the ritual." But it was too late. Arya spoke the final words, her hands raised to the blood moon, silver tears streaming down her face. I bind myself to this land. I surrender my beast to heal the broken earth. I choose. An explosion of pain. Someone had gotten past her defenders. Thorn's possessed form lunged through the entrance, a blade of pure corruption aimed at Arya's heart. Damien threw himself between them. The blade punched through his chest. He gasped, blood bubbling from his lips, but he grabbed Thorn's arm and held on. Finish it, he choked out, looking at Arya with eyes that were finally clear. I really did love you. I was just too weak to choose you. His grip tightened on Thorn. I'm choosing you now. Damien. Finish it. Arya turned back to the altar, back to the blood moon. And through her tears, through her breaking heart, she spoke the final word. Transformation. The world exploded in silver light. Power erupted from Arya's body, from her blood, from the place where her wolf had been. It shot upward through the shrine's opening, into the blood moon itself, then cascaded back down like a waterfall of liquid starlight. The corruption screamed. Arya felt it writhing, trying to resist, but the silver light was relentless. It spread from the shrine through the palace, through the territories, burning away 300 years of rot and death and madness. Behind her, Thorn shrieked, an inhuman sound of rage and despair. The vengeful spirit was being ripped from his body, torn apart by the moon goddess's purifying power. No. No. This was supposed to be my revenge. The voice cut off. Thorn's body collapsed, the spirit finally banished. And Damien, brave, foolish, redeemed Damien, fell beside him, the corruption blade still lodged in his chest. Arya tried to go to him, but her body wouldn't obey. The ritual was consuming her, rewriting her from the inside out. She felt her wolf, her constant companion since childhood, being pulled away. Felt that part of her soul being offered up as payment for the kingdom's salvation. Goodbye, her wolf whispered. Thank you for loving me. No, Arya sobbed. Please, I can't do this without you. But her wolf was already gone. That presence in her mind, that feeling of being more than just human, it vanished like smoke, leaving a hollow ache that felt like death. Arya screamed. The silver light reached its crescendo. Through the shrine entrance, she saw the cursed earth reversing, black turning to green, death becoming life. She saw pack members stumbling to their feet, the madness leaving their eyes. Saw children taking their first healthy breaths in weeks. The curse was broken. But the cost. Arya's legs gave out. She collapsed to the cold stone floor, the blood moon's light still bathing her in crimson and silver. Her body felt wrong. Empty. Like a house where half the rooms had been permanently sealed off. Arya. Kale was there, pulling her into his arms, his face streaked with blood and tears. Arya, talk to me. Please. She tried to speak but couldn't. Tried to shift, an automatic response to distress, but there was nothing to shift into. Her wolf was gone. That part of her had been severed, sacrificed, given to the land itself to break the curse. No, Kale choked out, holding her closer. No, you can't, stay with me. Arya, stay with me. But Arya's eyes were closing. The ritual had taken everything, her wolf, her mortality, her old self. Now she was transforming into something new. Something that would live forever bound to this land, ageless and alone. She tried to tell Kale she loved him. Tried to say goodbye. But darkness was swallowing her, and the last thing she heard before the world went silent was his voice, broken and desperate, screaming her name into the blood-red night. The curse was broken. The kingdom was saved. And Arya, the chosen daughter, the moon goddess's avatar, lay motionless in her mate's arms, her chest barely rising, her wolf forever silent, while the blood moon began its slow descent toward dawn. Chapter 8. Arya woke to birdsong. The sound was so unexpected, so normal, that for a moment she thought she was dreaming. But no, she could feel soft sheets beneath her, smell pine and morning dew through an open window, hear voices murmuring somewhere nearby. She opened her eyes to sunlight. Her chambers, the same ones where assassins had attacked, where blood had stained the floors, were clean and bright. Fresh flowers stood in vases on every surface. And slumped in a chair beside her bed, looking like he hadn't slept in days, was Cale. "Cale," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, amused. His eyes snapped open immediately. For a heartbeat he just stared at her, like he was afraid she was a hallucination. Then he was out of the chair and on the bed, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that stole her breath. 3 days, he choked out against her hair. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. The healers said you were alive but you wouldn't wake up, and I thought," his voice broke completely. "I thought I'd lost you." Arya held him, feeling the mate bond pulse between them, still there, still strong. But something else was missing. That other presence she'd carried her whole life, the one that had been as much a part of her as her own heartbeat. Her wolf was gone. The emptiness was so profound it took her breath away. Like someone had carved out a piece of her soul and left a hollow space that echoed with silence. She'd known it would happen, had chosen it willingly. But knowing and feeling were different things. "I can't shift," she said quietly. "I can feel it. My wolf, she's gone." Cale pulled back, cupping her face in his hands. His silver eyes were red-rimmed and haunted. "I know. The healers explained. The ritual took your wolf as payment for breaking the curse." His voice was raw. "Arya, I'm so sorry. If I'd known, if there had been any other way." There wasn't. She covered his hands with hers, surprised to find she wasn't crying. The loss hurt worse than anything physical ever could, but underneath the grief was something else. Peace, maybe. Or purpose. Did it work? Is the curse broken? Come see for yourself. Cale helped her to the window. Arya's legs were shaky from disuse, but she managed to stand. And when she looked out over the northern territory, her breath caught. Green. Everything was green. The forests that had been gray and dying were lush with new growth. The streams ran clear and bright. In the courtyard below, she saw children, healthy, strong children, laughing as they chased each other in a game of tag. Pack members moved through the palace grounds with energy and purpose, no longer haunted by sickness and madness. "The corruption vanished the moment you completed the ritual," Cale said softly. "Burned away like morning fog. Pack members who'd been ill for months woke up healed. The madness that plagued my bloodline, it's gone. I haven't sleepwalked once since the blood moon. Haven't heard voices or lost time." His arms wrapped around her from behind, holding her gently. "You saved us all, Arya. Saved a kingdom that wasn't even yours." "It is mine," she corrected. "Through you. Through the mate bond." They stood there in silence, watching the kingdom heal. Arya tried to feel her wolf, to reach for that familiar presence. But there was only emptiness where her other half should have been. She'd known it would feel like this, had chosen it anyway. But gods, it hurt. "I'm not whole anymore," she whispered. "You're alive. That's enough." Cale turned her to face him. "I don't care if you can't shift. I don't care if you're mortal or immortal or something in between. You're here. You're mine. And I'll spend whatever time we have making sure you never regret the choice you made." Before Arya could respond, the air in the room changed. Temperature dropped, and the sunlight took on a strange silver quality. Cale tensed, moving protectively in front of Arya, but she put a hand on his arm. "It's all right," she said, somehow knowing it was true. "She's here." A figure materialized in the center of the room, a woman made of moonlight and starshine, beautiful and terrible and ancient beyond measure. Her eyes held galaxies, and her smile was both kind and merciless. The moon goddess. Cale dropped to one knee immediately, pulling Arya down with him. But the goddess laughed, a sound like wind chimes and distant thunder. Rise, children. Formality bores me. She moved closer, her form becoming more solid, more real. Especially from you, chosen daughter. You've earned the right to stand in my presence. Arya stood on shaky legs. Why are you here? To offer you a choice. The final one. The goddess circled them, her silver gaze thoughtful. The curse was broken beautifully, I must say. Celeste's mother thought she was so clever, binding her vengeful spirit to the curse, ensuring it would last until the end of time. But she underestimated one thing. What? Love. The goddess's smile widened. She couldn't imagine someone choosing sacrifice not out of obligation or duty, but out of genuine love for people they barely knew. That kind of love, selfless and true, is the only thing powerful enough to break a curse born of hatred and betrayal. She paused. You passed the test, Arya. Proved yourself worthy to be my vessel on earth. A test? Kale's voice was dangerous. You're saying this was all a test? Not just a test. A necessity. The curse was real, the danger genuine. But yes, I needed to know if the silver bloodline still carried the strength of spirit required to channel divine power. The goddess turned back to Arya. You proved you do. Which is why I'm offering you a choice. Arya's heart pounded. What kind of choice? Remain as you are, immortal, bound to the land, channeling my blessing for eternity. You'll watch generations rise and fall, watch your mate grow old and die, watch centuries pass while you remain unchanged. But the Northern Territory will prosper under your protection, never again threatened by darkness or curse. The weight of forever pressed down on Arya's shoulders. Centuries alone. Millennia, perhaps. Watching everyone she loved turn to dust while she endured. Or, she asked quietly. Or give up the power. Return to being a normal wolf, mortal, with your wolf restored. You'll age alongside your mate, have children, live a natural life. The goddess's expression turned serious. But the blessing I've given this land will fade in 100 years. Another with silver blood will need to be found to renew it. And there's no guarantee they'll make the same choice you did. So I can have my wolf back. Hope flared in Arya's chest. Be mortal again? Yes. But you'll lose your connection to me. Lose the power you gained through the ritual. You'll be vulnerable, limited, human in all the ways that matter. The goddess paused. And Kale will age while you remain young for those 100 years unless you bind yourself differently. Arya's mind spun. She could be whole again. Could have her wolf back, feel that presence that had been part of her since childhood. Could grow old with Kale, have a normal life. But in 100 years, someone else would have to face this same choice. Another with silver blood would have to sacrifice their wolf to keep the blessing active. Could I? Arya stopped, thinking. Could I bind myself differently? Not to the land, but to Kale specifically? The goddess's eyes gleamed with interest. Explain. If I choose mortality and my wolf, could I make it so that my lifespan matches his? So that when he dies, I die with him? We'd be truly mated, in life and in death. No watching him age while I stay young. We'd have the same amount of time, whatever that is. Kale made a choked sound. Arya, no. You don't have to. I want to. She turned to him, taking his hands. I don't want eternity without you. I don't want to be immortal and alone. If I get my wolf back, if I can be whole again, I want to spend however many years we have together. And when your time comes, I want to go with you. That's... Kale's voice broke. That's the most beautiful and terrifying thing anyone's ever offered me. The goddess laughed, delighted. Love always finds a loophole. Very well, chosen daughter. I accept your terms. You'll return to mortality, your wolf restored. But your life will be bound to his. When he draws his last breath, you'll follow within the hour. And in 100 years, another with silver blood will need to renew the blessing. Will they? Arya asked. Will there be another? Oh yes. The goddess's smile turned mysterious. The silver bloodline continues. Has continued. Will continue. That's rather the point. She raised her hand, silver light gathering in her palm. Are you certain of your choice? There's no going back once it's done. Arya looked at Kale, her mate, her king, her choice. She thought about the wolf she'd lost, the emptiness that had haunted her since the ritual. She thought about growing old together, about having children, about living a normal life instead of an eternal one. I'm certain, she said. The goddess touched Arya's chest, right over her heart. Silver light exploded through her body, not painful, but overwhelming. Arya felt something crack open inside her, that hollow space that had been empty since the ritual. And then... Hello, a familiar voice whispered in her mind. Did you miss me? Arya gasped. My wolf. I'm here. I'm back. We're whole again. Tears streamed down Arya's face as she felt that presence return, stronger than before, vibrant and alive in her. The emptiness vanished, replaced by the rightness of being complete again. But something else was different. Her wolf felt larger. More powerful. Where before she'd been small and weak, an Omega's wolf, now she felt alpha strength coursing through her. What did you do? Arya asked the goddess. Gave you back what you sacrificed, with interest. You gave up your wolf to save a kingdom. I'm returning her to you as an alpha-class wolf. You'll never be called Omega again, chosen daughter. You're Luna of the Northern Territory in truth now, in power as well as title. The goddess began to fade. But before she vanished completely, she looked at Kale. Protect her. Love her. Give her the life she deserves. And in 100 years, when your grandchildren face their own impossible choices, remember the courage it took for her to choose sacrifice over safety. Then she was gone, leaving only silver sparkles in the air. Arya shifted before she could think about it, her wolf surging forward with joy. Where before she'd been a small white wolf, barely larger than a coyote, now she was magnificent. Still white, but larger, stronger, radiating alpha power that made the mate bond sing. She shifted back, laughing and crying at once. She's back. My wolf is back. Kale pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. I thought I'd lost you. Thought you'd given up everything. But you found a way, his voice broke. You found a way to have it all. Not all. Just what matters. Arya pulled back to look at him. A normal lifetime together. That's all I want. It won't be normal, Kale warned. You're Luna of the Northern Territory. Queen to an alpha king. We'll have responsibilities, politics, danger. Sounds perfect. She kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. As long as we face it together. The coronation was held 3 days later. The throne room had been cleaned of all signs of battle, decorated with silver and green, the colors of healing and new growth. Every pack in the Northern Territory sent representatives. Even some from the southern regions came, curious to witness the Luna who'd broken a 300-year curse. Arya wore a dress of silver silk that caught the light with every movement. Her hair was braided with moonflowers, the goddess's sacred bloom. And when Kale placed the Luna's crown on her head, the entire room erupted in howls of approval. She was no longer an Omega. No longer the rejected, worthless wolf Damien had mocked at the mating ceremony. She was Luna Arya, Queen of the Northern Territory, the chosen daughter who'd sacrificed her wolf and found a way to reclaim it. The celebration lasted 3 days. But Arya's favorite moment came on the third night, when she and Kale finally escaped to their private chambers, exhausted and happy. Did you see Elder Marcus's face when you shifted during the ceremony? Kale laughed, pulling her into bed. I think he nearly had a heart attack when he saw your wolf size. I'm still getting used to it myself. Arya curled against his side, feeling the mate bond hum contentedly. An alpha-class wolf. Me. You were always strong. The goddess just made it visible. He kissed her forehead. I meant what I said at the coronation. Every lifetime, every moon, I'll find you. We'll always be enough. Even when we're old and gray. Especially then. He pulled her closer. I can't wait to see you with silver in your hair, telling our grandchildren stories about how you saved a kingdom. Our children first, I think. Arya smiled against his chest. Then grandchildren. They drifted off to sleep like that, Alpha King and Luna Queen, bound together in life and death, facing whatever future came their way. Epilogue. 6 months later, Arya stood in the royal nursery, one hand on her swollen belly, the other arranging flowers in a vase. You're supposed to be resting, Kale said from the doorway. I'm pregnant, not dying. But she let him lead her to the comfortable chair by the window. The healer said everything looks perfect. Strong heartbeat. Good size. And the silver blood? Kale's hand joined hers on her belly. Is it? She has it. The healer confirmed it this morning. Arya smiled. Our daughter is going to be powerful. Our son, you mean? Kale grinned. I'm telling you, I can feel it. We're having a boy. Daughter. Son. They laughed, the old argument comfortable and warm. Outside the nursery window, the Northern Territory thrived. Green forests, clear streams, healthy pack members. Children born strong. The curse was broken, and life had returned. Arya watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. In 100 years, someone else would need to renew the blessing. Maybe her daughter. Maybe a grandchild. But that was a problem for another generation. For now, she had everything she'd ever wanted. A mate who loved her. A kingdom that accepted her. A future stretching ahead full of possibility instead of empty centuries alone. Her wolf stirred contentedly in her mind, and Arya smiled. They were whole. They were home. They were enough. In the shadows of the Eastern Tower, in a place where no one should have been able to stand, a figure watched the royal couple through the nursery window. Their form was indistinct, neither fully male nor female, young nor old. They smiled, pleased with how events had unfolded. The silver bloodline continues, they murmured to the empty air. Stronger than before. More concentrated. In another generation, maybe 2, it will be ready. They pulled a small silver pendant from their robes, ancient, carved with symbols that predated even the moon goddess's blessing. Inside the pendant, a single drop of blood glowed faintly. Silver blood, preserved for centuries, waiting. Phase 1 complete. The vessel has been prepared, the bloodline strengthened. Soon we can begin Phase 2. Their smile widened, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. And this time, when the silver blood awakens its full potential, it won't just heal kingdoms. It will remake the world. They vanished into the shadows, leaving only a faint scent of ancient magic and older purposes. In the nursery, Arya shivered slightly, feeling like someone had walked over her grave. But when she looked around, there was nothing there. Just her, Kale, and their unborn child. You all right? Kale asked. Fine. She shook off the strange feeling. Just tired, I think. Then let's get you to bed. He helped her up, one hand protective on the small of her back. Our daughter needs her rest. Son. Daughter. Their laughter echoed through the halls as they walked toward their chambers, unaware of the eyes that watched them go. Unaware of the ancient plans unfolding around them. Unaware that the curse they'd broken had been only the beginning of something much larger. But that was a story for another moon. Another generation. Another sacrifice. The silver blood would always be needed. Would always be called upon. Would always have to choose between love and duty, between self and others, between the life they wanted and the destiny they were born to fulfill. It was the blessing and the curse of being chosen. And it would continue, as it always had, as it always would. Until the day came when silver blood finally fulfilled its true purpose. But that day was still generations away. For now, the Northern Territory had peace. The curse was broken. And two souls who'd found each other against impossible odds had their chance at happiness. And sometimes, in a world of ancient magic and terrible choices, that had to be enough. I know you enjoyed this video. Do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel.